Welcome to the West Virginia Legislature on the West Virginia Channel. I'm Beth Voorhees. Here's a live look inside the House of Delegates chamber at the state capitol in Charleston. Looks like the Marshall University Fife and Drum Corps will be performing for the House of Delegates today. After a busy crossover day, probably some pretty short floor sessions for the rest of this week. On third reading, up for passage in the House, Senate Bill 113, authorizing the DEP to promulgate legislative rules. Senate Bill 362, authorizing redirection of certain amounts to the General Revenue Fund. Senate Bill 419, creating a special revenue fund sources for the Division of Labor to meet statutory obligations. Those are the bills that are up for passage in the House today. Among the bills on second reading, Senate Bill 36, permitting school nurses and teachers to possess and administer opioid antagonists. Senate Bill 41, extending time a person may be subject to probation. Senate Bill 233, excluding from protection oral communications uttered in child care center under Wiretapping and Electronic Surveillance Act. Also on second reading, Senate Bill 338 relating to medical professional liability. Senate Bill 347 relating to modernization of Physician Assistant Practice Act. Senate Bill 437 discontinuing the West Virginia Greyhound Breeding Development Fund. Senate Bill 473 permitting collection and sale of naturally shed deer antlers. Senate Bill 497 relating to the liability for healthcare providers who provide services at school athletic events. Those are among the bills at the amendment stage on the House floor today. And here's a look inside the Senate chamber at the state capitol. Just one bill up for passage in the Senate today, House Bill 2459, relating to regulation of health care and the Certificate of Need process. On second reading, the amendment stage in the Senate, House Bill 2679, relating to the possession of firearms in parks and park facilities. House Bill 2721, removing the cost limitation on projects completed by the Division of Highways. House Bill 2722, eliminating the financial limitations on utilizing the Design-Build program for highway construction. And House Bill 3106, relating to increasing the number of limited video lottery terminals. Those are among the bills at the amendment stage in the Senate today. The House is having some audio difficulties. Please stand by.
Promise to give us wisdom when we ask. And so we ask, O God, that you would guide and direct this body in all of its work. You promise to give us wisdom graciously and ungrudgingly. We are amazed by your goodness toward us. And so we ask your blessings upon the day's proceedings. We ask for your wisdom, your guidance, and your grace to be among us. We pray these things in your name, trusting in your presence. Amen.
Amen. Members and guests will please remain standing. We will now have Marshall University's Fife and Drum Corps be performing Amazing Grace and the National Anthem. Members and guests will please remain standing as we're led in the Pledge of Allegiance by the gentleman from the 17th, Elliot Rohrbach.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If the members and guests will join us in saying the Pledge of Allegiance to our great nation. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Members and guests may be seated. Reading the journal.
Journal of the House of Delegates, Charleston, Wednesday, March 29th, 2017.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from the 16th, Delegate Romine.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that further reading of the journal be dispensed with and it be approved as having been read.
The gentleman from the 16th asks unanimous consent that further reading of the journal be dispensed with and it be approved as having been read. Is there objection? The chair hears none. Journal is approved as having been read. Gentleman from the 58th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, today we have a citation presentation honoring Herbert Hoover Huskies basketball team. To accept the citation, we have the team and coaches escorting our guests into the Chamber of Delegates from Kanawha County.
Clerk will please read the citation.
Whereas the Herbert Hoover High School building in Clendenin, West Virginia was destroyed in the June 2016 flood and forced the Herbert Hoover High School boys basketball team to hold morning practices at the Charleston YMCA and attend classes in the afternoon at Elkview Middle School. Despite losing its school gym and equipment in the flood, the Herbert Hoover High School boys basketball team made a remarkable run at the end of its 2017 basketball season, which ended with it winning the Class AA Region II co-final and advancing to its first state tournament in school history. The Herbert Hoover boys basketball team was led by head coach Josh Daniel and assistant coaches Terry Jarrett and Josh Stricker. And whereas the Herbert Hoover boys basketball team roster consists of players Cody McGraw, Chase King, Jackson Myers, Austin Stafford, Gavin Robertson, Yoa Payne, John Campbell, Evan McGraw, Rhett White, Josh Swecker, Grant Bonner, Maven Mullins, Joey Belcher, Ethan Knight, Andrew Justice, and Hayden King. The Herbert Hoover cheerleading team consists of Ellie Kinder, Rachel Stevens, Asa Bertram, Brianna Salisbury, Bethany Roush, Chloe Curry, Kaylee Robinson, Kristen Rager, Ava Young, Emma Bowles, Brooke Nelson, Cammie Casto, Alexis Anderson, Bailey Beaver, Miranda McCoy, Sarah Black, Cambria Caldwell, Haley McLaughlin, Candy Lewis, Lexi Harper, Bethany Lucas, Katarina Mullins, and Taylor Bennett. And whereas With its amazing accomplishment, the Herbert Hoover boys basketball team shined a light on a rebuilding city and gave hope to all the citizens of Clendenin and the surrounding areas. The Herbert Hoover boys basketball team is a shining example to all West Virginians of what can be accomplished with dedication, commitment, and teamwork. Therefore, the House of Delegates of the West Virginia Legislature hereby congratulates the Herbert Hoover High School boys basketball team and directs this citation be presented in their honor.
Members and guests will please be at ease a moment while I greet our guests and present the citation. Introduction of guests. Lady from the 16th, Doug Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The House of Delegates of the West Virginia Legislature hereby recognizes Marshall University today. Whereas 2017 marks the 180th anniversary of Marshall University, one of the oldest institutions of higher education in West Virginia, was founded in 1837 as Marshall Academy in honor of Chief Justice John Marshall. Marshall University has been educating sons and daughters of Marshall in the tradition of the great Chief Justice ever since. Marshall University today is one of the state's premier institutions of higher education and educates more than 14,000 students at campuses in Huntington, Point Pleasant, South Charleston, Beckley, Logan, and Gilbert. And whereas Marshall University offers degrees at the associate, baccalaureate, master's, and doctoral levels, Marshall University has built a national reputation for research and biotechnology, forensics, and medicine. Marshall University's health sciences train hundreds of West Virginians to serve as doctors, nurses, therapists, and health technicians each year. Marshall University each year contributes nearly $400 million and 3,200 jobs to West Virginia's economy. And whereas the Robert C. Byrd Institute RCBI, is dedicated to the productivity, growth, and global competitiveness of West Virginia entrepreneurs, and the Ray Hall Transportation Institute continues to set national standards in transportation. Therefore, the House of Delegates of the West Virginia Legislature hereby designates Thursday, March 30th, 2017 as Marshall University Day and recognizes Marshall University for its tremendous contributions to the state of West Virginia and directs this citation to be presented and that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to Dr. Jerome A. Gilbert, President of Marshall University. This citation was presented by all of the delegates from Cabell and Wayne. Thank you.
The gentleman from 35th, Doggett Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have two introductions today. First, in the rear gallery, we have Louis and Liz Weisberg of Charleston, owner of Service Wire and State Electric, a very large employer in the Cabell County area. And their guests with us today are Bill and Lisa No. Bill is a native of Huntington, graduate of Marshall, and he's a former CEO of NetJets. But if you all would stand and if the members would make them welcome. Thank you. Also in the rear gallery today, a Charleston native, Greg Elliott, and he has a friend in from Colorado, Bob Seibel. What's interesting, this is the 50th capital that Bob has visited. So if you two would rise, and if the members would make them very much welcome. Thank you.
John from 62nd, Doggett Overton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is my pleasure to introduce to you a friend of mine from the Eastern Panhandle, Darrell Scholes. He is a respected business leader in the Eastern Panhandle, will be representing the Secretary of State in that capacity in the Eastern Panhandle. Would he please stand as the House makes him welcome?
John from 46, Doggett Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today we have several pages from Lewis County visiting us from St. Patrick's Catholic School. While I call your names, if you would please stand up. We have Drew Bailey, Hunter Davidson, Tom Dorico, Ian Droppelman, Madison Hall, Jana Jordan, Emily Liebarger, Gracie Pettit, Drew Moodispal, Emily Lowe, Gavin Hawkins, Slate Swigger, Zoe Skinner, McKenna West, Thomas O'Neill, Andrew Name. And also, if they're accompanied by their teacher, Sherry Jackson, and some of the parents and grandparents, if they would also stand. We have Paige Bailey, Casey Lowe, Kelly Skinner, Najit Name, Christy Smith, Danny Davidson, Jeff Liebarger, TJ Hall, Jim and Susie Godfrey. If the House would please make them all feel very welcome.
John from the 17th, Doggett Rohrbach.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to give a special introduction to our pastor today. If he'd stand on behalf of Delegates Miller and Romine and myself, our pastor Eric Potterfield, who led us in prayer today, if the House would make him especially welcome. Thank you.
Gentleman from the 54th, Doggett Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Traveling all the way from Mineral County, hard-working iron workers. They get up early in the morning, work all day, pay their taxes, and never complain. I want them to stand up as I call their name out. That's Cliff Wendricks, Alex Lower, Ryan Liller, and Jason Capper. Would you all make them welcome, please? Hard-working men.
John from the 11th, Doggett Atkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today in the South Gallery, we have visiting from Rome County, Terry and Carolyn Deffenbaugh and their exchange student from China, Song Wen. If they would please stand and the House make them welcome.
John from 17th, Doug Lovejoy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a special introduction today. I know that it can seem crazy around here, but I promise you that it's nothing compared to my house. 4 kids and a wonderful wife who's here today. She's in the gallery there in the south. I'd ask her to stand. I love you. Thank you, Sarah.
John from the 67th, Doug Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I noticed in the gallery one of my constituents in the gallery right now, former Delegate John Doyle. If the House would please make him welcome. Thank you.
John from 24th, Doug Rogerio.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of Delegate Markham, Miller, Phillips, and Eldridge, we have some pages from Logan Middle School, 5th graders. We have T-Lynn Napper, Anthony Fortuna, Tiana Eldridge. They're accompanied by Lindsay Napper, Nicolian Fortuna, and Crystal Eldridge. Would the floors please make them welcome? Thank you.
John for the 19th, Doug Hicks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of the Cabell and Wayne delegation, I would like to welcome a special guest with us today. This gentleman spent 20 years in the House, in this House, representing Cabell County. He is currently a Cabell County Commissioner. Please welcome Jim Morgan. Yeah!
Lady from the 16th, Doug Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would also like to welcome some of our members from Marshall University. We have Matt Jarvis, who is a junior in finance and economics from Nitro. He is the student body president. We have Morgan Zirkle, who is a senior in exercise science. He's from Huntington. Whoops, Morgan's a female, sorry, Miss Marshall. We have Darius Booker, Senior Public Relations and Management from Charleston, SGA Diversity Liaison. And if they're still up there, I'd like you all to make them welcome. Thank you.
John from 24th, Doug Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let these lovely ladies get in place. But ladies and gentlemen from Logan County, the city of Logan, they have a Freedom Festival, and I'm going to introduce their queens, if they would stand as I announce them. Queen Haley Mullins, parents Tommy and Tanya Mullins. Teen Queen Hannah White, mother Julie White. Princess Hillary Gore, mother Amber Vires. And accompanied with the City of Logan's Wood and Water Festival. Oh, wait a minute. She gave me a little bit more. I've got Queen Laura Ramey, Teen Queen Carly Miller, mother Dina Miller, Princess Mallory Reed, father Tim Reed, and they are accompanied by the city organizers, City Mayor Serafino Neletti, and the City Clerk Amber Miller Vires. If they would stand, the House make them welcome. Thank you. And they are very lovely ladies.
John for the 58th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been joined by our Doctor of the Day in the back of the chamber. We have with us Dr. Wes Lafferty of Mullins. If the House will make the doctor welcome.
Further introductions. Reports of standing committees.
Your Committee on Agriculture and Natural Resources has had under consideration Senate Bill 493, providing increase in compensation for conservation officers. Reports the same back with its title amended, with the recommendation that it do pass and that it be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Report be received. The bill be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Your Joint Committee on Enrolled Bills has examined, found truly enrolled, and on March 29, 2017, presented to His Excellency the Governor for his action, Committee Substitute for House Bill 2811, relating to the definition of above-ground storage tanks.
Report be received.
Your Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration Senate Bill 468, removing restrictions on where traditional lottery games may be played. Reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass and that it be referred to Committee on Finance.
Report be received. The bill be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration Senate Bill 173, relating generally to autocycles. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 224, repealing the requirement for employers' bond for wages and benefits. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 230, relating to certain West Virginia officials carrying concealed firearm nationwide. Senate Bill 554, relating to false swearing in legislative proceeding. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 204, requiring persons appointed to fill vacancy by governor have same qualifications for vacated office and receive same compensation and expenses. And Committee substitute for Senate Bill 575, limiting nuisance actions against shooting ranges for noise. Reports the same back with amendments, with recommendation that each do pass as amended.
Report be received.
Your Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration Committee substitute for Senate Bill 125, authorizing DHHR promulgate legislative rules. Reports the same back with amendment, with the recommendation that it do pass as amended.
Report be received. Reports of select committees. Messages from the Executive.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Armstead presents a communication from His Excellency the Governor advising that on March 29, 2017, he approved Committee substitute for Senate Bill 302.
Message will be received. Messages from the Senate.
The Clerk of the Senate announces the passage by the Senate of Committee substitute for Senate Bill 286 relating to grandparents' visitation rights.
Message will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
The Senate has passed Committee substitute for Senate Bill 446, authorizing Governor issue executive orders to furlough state employees.
Message will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary and then to Finance.
The Senate has passed Committee substitute for Senate Bill 465 relating to medical professional liability.
Message will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
The Senate has passed Committee substitute for Senate Bill 469 prohibiting waste of game animals, birds, or fish.
Message will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
The Senate has passed Committee substitute for Senate Bill 515 relating to parole requirements for hearings and release.
Message will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
The Senate has passed Committee substitute for Senate Bill 521 relating generally to public defender services.
Message will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary and then to Finance.
The Senate has passed Committee substitute for Senate Bill 534 relating to incentives for consolidating local governments.
Message will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Government Organization.
The Senate has passed Committee substitute for Senate Bill 562 relating to civil actions for damages brought against county commissions and municipalities.
Message will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
The Senate has passed Committee substitute for Senate Bill 588 relating to reproduction, distribution, and sale of tax maps.
Message will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Government Organization. Roll purpose, gentleman from 63rd, seek recognition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Inquiry to the chair.
Gentleman may stay his inquiry.
Senate Bill 386 was passed yesterday by the Senate and received, or at least delivered, to the clerk's office at 9:05 this morning, according to the Senate Clerk, Clark Barnes. I'd like to inquire as to the physical location of that bill and if you intend to bring it as a committee report or a Senate report today.
To the gentleman, there were several bills that have been passed by both houses that are being exchanged today, and those will be, they have to be reviewed and assigned to committees. So they will be, we're looking through those as we proceed, and there'll be a number of sit-up messages that will be brought to the floor.
So should we expect that in the next 24 hours?
I have no idea when you'll expect it. I just know that we'll be looking at each of those messages. There are probably 30 or 40 more that need to be done.
Thank you.
Resolutions.
House Resolution 16, honoring and memorializing the life of Jerry L. Crozier.
Gentleman from the 58th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that the committee reference be dispensed with and the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration and put upon its adoption.
The gentleman from the 58th asks unanimous consent that the committee reference be dispensed with, that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration and put upon its adoption. Is there objection? Chair hears none. All members and guests in the gallery will please stand. Clerk, please. First of all, delegates will please escort members, family members to the well of the chamber. Clerk, please read the resolution.
Whereas Delegate Jerry L. Crozier was born December 11, 1933 in Union, the son of retired game warden Virgil Cap and Mabel Shaver Crozier. He graduated from Union High School and served in the U.S. Army. Delegate Crozier retired from the Department of Natural Resources as a conservation officer at the rank of sergeant after 26 years of service. He also served as past president of the Union Rotary Club, past Little League coach of the Blue Sox, elder of the Union Presbyterian Church, and president of the Monroe County Building Commission. Delegate Crozier also served as sheriff of Monroe County for 8 years. Delegate Crozier ably represented the 26th District of the House of Delegates for 10 years. While in the House, Delegate Crozier received an award for his outstanding work in the legislature with emergency services in the state and secured over $2 million in funding for organizations in his district. In 2011, Delegate Crozier was awarded Outstanding Democrat for Monroe County, and he received the Distinguished West Virginian Award in 2012 from Governor Tomlin. Delegate Crozier passed away on April 23, 2016 at Carolyn Roanoke Memorial Hospital, Roanoke, Virginia, and left behind his wife of 56 years, Margie Hannafin Crozier, 2 daughters, Erin Netzel and her husband, Norbert of Union, and Kelly Crozier of Union, 1 son, Sean Crozier, and wife Twyla of Union, 3 sisters, Jean Nichols of Union, Shirley Neal and her husband, Jack of Union, and Sandra Sue Parker and husband Dick of Stewart's Draft, Virginia. 2 brothers, Robert Bob Crozier and wife Mary of Grandview, and William Bill Crozier of Union, and 8 grandchildren and 4 great-grandchildren. And whereas, following funeral services on April 29, 2016, at the Union Presbyterian Church in Union, with Nancy Bulla and Pastor Gene Fullen officiating, Delegate Crozier was laid to rest in private ceremony on the family farm. Therefore, be it resolved by the House of Delegates that the members of the House of Delegates hereby honor and memorialize one of its own, Delegate Jerry L. Crozier, and remembers that he leaves behind a lasting imprint of his honorable service to his state, his district, and his home county. And be it further resolved that the clerk of the House of Delegates prepare a certified copy of this resolution for his surviving family.
Question before the House is the adoption of the resolution. Roll call has been demanded. Is demand sustained? Demand is sustained. Those in favor of the adoption of the resolution will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk prepare the machine. Would ask the clerk please record the members who have escorted our honored guests to the chamber as voting in the affirmative. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, 100 ayes, 0 nays, no members absent not voting. The majority of members present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the resolution adopted. House will please be at ease a moment while I present the resolution. Honored guests for the chamber. Members may be seated. Petitions, motions, bills introduced, unfinished business, bills on third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 113, authorizing DEP promulgate legislative rules.
Question for the House is the passage of the bill. Gentleman from the 33rd, Douglas Hanshaw, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, Senate Bill 113 is the DEP rules bundle. This bundle contains 9 rules, 7 of which are the regular periodic updates that this body undertakes with regularity to the air quality program. These rules are necessary in order to maintain West Virginia's primacy with respect to enforcement of the Federal Clean Air Act within the borders of West Virginia. There are 2 new rules in the bill, or in the bundle. The first of them is designed to simply comply with legislation adopted by this body, which transfers the West Virginia Litter Control Program out of the Division of Natural Resources, DNR, and over into DEP. And the remaining rule is a rule which provides for alternative emission limitations during startup, shutdown, and maintenance operations. And specifically, this is a rule which provides the Secretary of DEP the authority to establish alternative emission limits within the scope of the Clean Air Act to allow those facilities which have Clean Air Act permits in West Virginia to start up their facility, shut down their facility, and engage in periodic maintenance activities. Mr. Speaker, I urge passage of the bill.
Are there other members desiring to speak to the passage of the bill? Not question for the House is the passage of the bill. Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has each member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, 98 ayes, 0 nays, 2 members absent, not voting. The majority of members present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk, please report the title.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 113.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Gentleman from the 58th.
Mr. Speaker, I move the bill be made effective from passage.
Gentleman from the 58th moves the bill be made effective from passage. Those in favor of the gentleman's motion will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has each member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, 98 ayes, 0 nays, 2 members absent, not voting. A majority of 2/3 of the members elected having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill effective from passage. Clerk, please communicate the acts of the House to the Senate. Further bills.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 362, authorizing redirection of certain amounts to General Revenue Fund.
Request for the House is the passage of the bill. Gentleman from the 35th, Delegate Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, Senate Bill 362 is a bill that will authorize the governor to redirect $34 million to general revenue that is currently dedicated to the old workers' comp debt reduction. In the way of background for our new members as well as the old, in 2005, the body put in place a method to handle a $4 billion unfunded obligation as it related to our old workers' comp. This is the same time that we privatized it. The state took on the obligation of a $4 billion unfunded obligation to cover 52,000 people. Over the last 10 years, more than $250 million has been redirected to pay down that unfunded liability, which is now below $100 million. We still have a couple of sources going into that unfunded liability, and the 3 sources today that we will, are part of this bill, taking 75% and directing this to general revenue as part of our budget this year to balance. The first, right now, $11 million is transferred from the video lottery fund. This bill proposes 75% of that, which would be $8.25 million. The second part, there is a surcharge on self-directed or self-insured commercial providers right now of $9 million a year. This bill would take 75% and redirect it to general revenue, roughly $6.75 million. And lastly, there's a 9% surcharge on general insurance policies to help cover this old unfunded liability. That currently brings in roughly $27 million, so a redirect of 75% is a little over $20 million. This totals up roughly $35.2 million, and again, it is part of this year's budget and the way that we can get to a balanced position. Mr. Speaker, I urge passage.
The gentleman from 34th, Delegate Boggs.
Gentleman yield.
Gentleman yield. Gentleman yields.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I just wanted to, again, I believe this is, just wanted to clarify that this is the same language of what we passed out of finance, House Finance, a few days ago.
Yes, thank you for, so what we did yesterday is we amended the House Finance bill, and that was 3108 that we passed, and we amended it into the Senate bill because the Senate did not quite do the same thing we did.
So there's no difference in what this bill, this Senate bill does as the vehicle versus what we did up in finance?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Gentleman from the 10th, Delegate Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Chairman, I think you forgot or neglected to say how we paid off that debt. It was $4 billion debt, and I give Governor Manchin credit for doing it because it couldn't be done. We always said because of that huge debt that we couldn't privatize it. Well, we did privatize it, and the legislature should take great pride in helping Governor Manchin do that. And we've been able to now categorize the payment to various recipients of workers' comp and bring the cost way, way down, because at the time we privatized it. The only way an employer could get relief was go to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court always ruled in the workers' favor. And so now that's not possible. And I give Jane Klein, the insurance commissioner at that time, a great deal of credit, because she took on the heavy lifting for turning workers' comp into a private entity. But what paid that debt off was an increase in the tax on oil and gas and timber, severance tax on those items. And at the time it went on to natural gas. Natural gas was selling for about $10, $10 a thousand, and then it went to $2. And so it was a great burden on the oil and gas people and timber people, but we did it. We paid that debt off, and thanks to Governor Manchin and this legislature for doing that. It was an epic occasion because everybody said it couldn't be done. We did it.
The gentleman from the 30th, Doug Bates.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yield.
Just if I can, just to follow up on the gentleman from Braxton's comment. This is the originating version of the redirect.
That's correct.
Out of Senate, and there was a bill similar to this that was, I think, sent up from downstairs. It was part of the governor's original budget proposal, and then that was also adopted as part of the framework that the House has used to balance its budget. Is that correct?
That's correct.
It's the same basic concept.
That's correct.
And then this is, my understanding is that once this fund is, the debt obligation is paid off, then these surcharges and things will go away. So that this money's available for us this year, but it would more than likely be anticipated it'll just be one-time money, that this revenue stream would go away more than likely at the end of the next period where the fund will be certified. Is that your understanding as well? That
this is a one-time action.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from the 55th, Doug Espinago.
Will the chairman yield?
Gentleman yield. Gentleman yields.
This fund that we're taking money from, this is the same fund that we took money from last year under House Bill 419. Is that correct? Where we took $110 million off for coal, oil and gas, and timber, correct?
Yes.
And at that point in time, if I recall from the debate on the floor, this tax, the surcharge tax, or the entire fund was going to be funded September of last year. That was predicted by an actuary, correct?
Oh, I think that they said that it was close to being fully funded.
And then we cut timber, coal, and oil and gas loose, which then extended the payment on every other small business in the state for the next 15 months. Or is it still, everybody's still paying it in the state that has employees, an employer that has to pay workers' comp on them, correct?
What we did was eliminated an additional surcharge on those three industries, as well as redirected $50 million that was from personal income tax that was going to this fund.
And so we're taking more money out of this fund, so it's never going to get paid off. We keep dipping into it, taking money out, so eventually the surcharge is supposed to come off on these premiums, but as long as we keep taking money out of the fund, it's never going to get paid off, correct?
No, that's it's under $100 million. There's still $12 million directed to this fund this year, not to mention the interest earnings that will accrue.
Permission to speak to the bill.
Gentleman may proceed.
I'm against this bill. I was one of 3 votes that voted against HB 419 last year. We had a big conversation in here for literally hours talking how removing the surcharge on coal, oil and gas, and timber was going to save all those industries. So we were going to let them out from underneath this cost. This fund was going to be paid off literally 3 months after the date that we left here. We cut them loose for 3 months and put the burden on every retailer, manufacturer, contractor that has employees in this state, they pay workers' comp. There's a surcharge on that. So we extended that time period. Everybody was going to get out from underneath of it for 2 or 3 months. And we extended it at least a year and a half, and now we're dipping into the fund again and pulling more and more money off out of it. The business people in this state that aren't in one of those 3 industries are continuing to pay this tax when they were supposed to be out last year. So you can get in and grab one-time money. It's turned into a slush fund. It's been a great thing when we took it from public to private, but the deal was everybody got out. Coal, oil, and gas, they caused 90% of the unfunded liability. No fault to them, but those are highly dangerous industries that people work in. Those injuries resulted in a lot of deaths and injuries. But they caused 90% of it, of the $4 billion. And it's nearly paid off. We let them go 3 months early, and then we're continuing to stick it on every other small business, manufacturer, contractor, anybody that has employees. In perpetuity, if you only keep going in here and pulling out this money. That's not right, and that's not fair. And to go in here and yank $35 million out, basically pulling 75% of the revenue that's in that fund, meaning we're going to be back here again next year and continue to pull it out. We're going to hear smoothing. We can't let everybody out of here right away. We just got to keep smoothing this fund so every small business in the state continues to pay this surcharge tax, and they didn't cause 90% of it. That's just not fair. I'm going to vote no.
Joan from the 10th Dean.
Mr. Speaker, I want to remind the delegate from Tucker that coal, oil, natural gas still pay a severance tax. The tax that was used to pay off the debt from workers' comp was an addition to a severance tax they were already paying. So they're still paying, if oil and gas, I know, still paying a 5% severance tax on their gross production, even though the price of gas has gone from, like I said, around $10 to $2. Thank you, Mr. President.
Joan for 39th, Doggett Walters.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As for Rule 49 on this, I'm one of only 2 firms that are authorized to settle claims in this fund.
To the gentleman, as the gentleman and I have discussed, I do believe that this may have a direct impact on you. And normally, if there were 5 or more similarly situated parties that would have that effect, it would be as a member of a class. But as I understand from your representations to me, there are only 2 that would be affected in this way. And to that extent, I would say that you would be excused from voting. Further members desiring to speak to the passage of the bill? Not the question for the House is the passage of the bill. Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. Clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, 72 ayes, 27 nays, 1 member excused. A majority of members present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk, please report the title.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 362.
Are there amendments to the title?
Delegate Nelson moves to amend the title.
Request for the House is the adoption of the title amendment. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Declare the title amendment adopted. Clerk, please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Further bills.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 419, creating special revenue fund sources for division of labor to meet statutory obligations.
Request for the House is the passage of the bill. The gentleman from 35th, Doggett Nelson, to explain the bill.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill, well, it was 2776, but it's Senate Bill 419. But House Finance passed House Bill 2776. Yesterday, our bill was amended into the Senate since they had already passed it. What this bill does is it amends various provisions in the code dealing with the collection and use of fees in the division of labor. Currently, the Division of Labor has a $2.7 million general line item. What this bill does will move the Division of Labor and the funding of its services to special revenue. How it is doing that? It is increasing a couple of registration and permit fees, and creating 4 new special revenue accounts: a steam boiler fund, a psycho examiner's fund, HVAC fund, and a bedding and upholsterers fund. It will allow the Commissioner of Labor to use these monies to basically pay for the services provided. The committee substitute in House Finance that's reported here to the floor basically limited the use of the various special revenue accounts to limited purposes for which they were created, as opposed to allowing the Commissioner of Labor to redesignate funds for other purposes of the division. Again, Mr. Speaker, this is another building block for our budget this year of $2.7 million, and I urge passage.
With other members desiring to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, the question before the House is the passage of the bill. Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Gentlemen, okay. If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. In this question, 94 ayes, 5 nays, 1 member absent not voting. Majority of members present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk, please report the title.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 419.
Are there amendments to the title?
Delegate Nelson moves to amend the title.
Question for the House is the adoption of the title amendment. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Declare the title amendment adopted. Clerk, please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Further bills.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2933.
Gentleman for the 58th.
Mr. Speaker, I move the bill be tabled.
The gentleman for 58th moves the bill be tabled. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The bill is tabled. Bills on second reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 36, permitting school nurses to possess and administer opioid antagonists.
Are there amendments?
Committee on Health moves to amend the bill. This is H and HRAM number 1.
The gentleman from the 27th, Doug Ellington, asks unanimous consent to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Gentleman from the 27th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The amendment permits a school nurse or other trained personnel to administer an opioid antagonist to a person who is attending an event on school property. I urge adoption of the amendment.
Are there other members desiring to speak to the adoption of the amendment? If not, the question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced to third reading.
Senate Bill 41, extending time person may be subject to probation.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced to third reading.
Senate Bill 164, relating to traffic regulations and special load limits.
Are there amendments?
Delegate Powell moves to amend the bill. This is HFA 3-30.
The gentleman from the 51st, Doug Piles, asks unanimous consent to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read. Is there objection? Chair hears none. The gentleman from the 51st.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment incorporates the language from my House Bill 2357 that was introduced early in the session and was never brought up in the Roads and Transportation Committee. This amendment does not change in any way the intents or purposes of the bill. This bill was supported by the City of Morgantown, and several other cities were interested in having it placed on the legislative agenda of the League of Municipalities. Morgantown is especially affected by truck traffic due to the location of the Beechhurst Avenue power plant. This power plant utilizes what is called a fluidized bed boiler that burns coal over a bed of limestone, a form of clean coal technology that actually seems to work and is recognized by the state tax department as pollution abatement equipment. With a boiler of this type, the plant uses quite a bit of limestone trucked in from eastern Monongalia County and from Preston County. But the limestone trucks going to the plant are not the problem. Those familiar with Morgantown know about the Greenbag Road. going past the old Mountaineer Mall. At one time, this road was a designated truck route and was posted as such. Those signs are now gone, but many trucks still use the road. By agreement with the City of Morgantown, coal and limestone trucks going to the power plant use the Greenbag Road. But the Greer Limestone Company has a loading dock on the river adjacent to the power plant. Trucks going to the power plant go around the city via the Greenbag Road. Trucks going to the loading dock rumble through a residential neighborhood and then through the downtown business district to get to the loading dock. Those trucks create dust, noise, and cause damage to the city streets. About 2 years ago, City Council passed an ordinance restricting such truck traffic in the city. This ordinance was overturned in court, and such is the reason for this bill and amendment. This law will allow cities to have some control over heavy traffic on their city streets. It will be mostly applied to heavy tractor, trailer, semi-type vehicles, and only if there is an alternative route around the city. Vehicles making local deliveries will be exempt. Cities in all parts of West Virginia are anxious to have this sort of control over their streets that the bill will provide, and I urge adoption of this amendment. Thank you.
Are there other members desiring to speak to the adoption of the amendment? Gentleman from the 27th, Delegate Gerhardt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I would respectfully request rejection of this amendment. The bill before you is intended to allow utilities to be able to quickly react to circumstances where they're out of control, particularly issues like the flood that we had last summer. Currently, the limits that are established here on vehicles can be accomplished by going through a permitting process. So if you need to haul a limit that's a couple feet longer than is typically allowed, then you may obtain a special permit in order to accomplish that. However, that permitting process does not allow our utility companies to react quickly, and particularly based upon the size of equipment that is used now, or materials that are used, particularly 45-foot power poles. They are not able to quickly get a power pole to a site that may in fact require it. This bill is to the advantage of the cities to allow our utilities to make a very quick, timely reaction to what may be a deadly emergency. Without this bill, we put them through the process of having to do permitting that can extend the time and can leave our citizens without the utilities, particularly power, that they may require. I believe that that the bill as written without this amendment is very timely, very essential. It's very important to our people, particularly in light of the flood that was so detrimental to so many in our state last year. And I would respectfully request rejection of this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Lady from 51st, Doug Fletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of the amendment. There's a specific statute that says that municipalities can regulate the weight limits in their towns. And we seem to go back and forth here on whether we want to have local control, whether we want to have state control, whether we want to have agency control. And this is just a municipality wanting to have some control over their roads being ruined by giant trucks. I would think most municipalities would want to have a little local control on that issue, and the statute specifically says that they have that. I urge adoption.
John from 27th, Doug Schott.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This body overwhelmingly passed a bill not long ago to facilitate the expansion of broadband in our state. And one of the reasons for this bill was to allow the telephone poles that have to be longer than they typically have been in order to accommodate the infrastructure for that broadband expansion to be able to travel wherever the highways, the Division of Highways permits. Now, the way I read this amendment, it would allow a municipality to prevent that. It basically deprives the Division of Highways of the ability to enforce that or to permit that type of activity to occur. The other flaw in this amendment is a technical flaw, I think. If you look at the amendment, it talks about in depriving the the Division of Highways of this authority, it says where there is at least one reasonable alternative route available to avoid traveling within the municipality. In other words, someone somewhere is going to decide whether there's a reasonable, whatever that means, alternative route available. It provides no guidance as to who's to make that decision, the municipality, the Division of Highways, a referee from the ACC conference. It just doesn't provide any information. It doesn't provide any kind of mechanism to determine whether that decision is proper or not. But the most important reason that I oppose this amendment is the will of this body to do all we can to make broadband expansion in this state. And this could operate to slow or prevent that from happening in some areas. So therefore, I urge rejection of the amendment.
John for the 10th, Target Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise and oppose this amendment. I think that what the amendment also tries to do is disavow the Department of Highways from being able to maintain these areas that are within these municipalities. Every one of us in our districts have cities that the state road goes through. They maintain those roads. They repave them. They take care of the sewer lines and the water lines that are underneath of those when they go back for new construction. And if you allow this to happen, then you're going to put the burden upon these municipalities to maintain these roads. I don't think that's your intention. So for that reason, I think we need to put this amendment down.
Lady from 51st, Target Fletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With all due respect to the Chairman of Judiciary, I just don't see how this little amendment would have the impact that he's saying. All it says, if you look at it, is that, of course I can't bring it up right now, that regulation of traffic includes the power to regulate the weight and size of vehicles traveling in a municipality. And it also says that this power is shared with the Commissioner of Highways. So it's, and local authorities have authority within their borders. I hope that our cities and counties have some authority with respect to those roads. And I just don't see that it has the far-reaching effects, whereas taking the municipality totally out of the picture when it comes to weight and traffic limitation does. This is a municipality that has home rule. And here, once again, we're taking another side of the issue when it comes to local control. I think cities should have this kind of power. It makes sense to have some local control that's shared with highways, and I urge adoption.
John from the 51st, close debate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's not the intent or purpose of this amendment to inhibit in any way the movement of the utility poles anticipated by the bill. And I think that any attempt by any city to do that could be possibly challenged in court. And also, my amendment does not in any way affect the maintenance of city streets. It's just the purpose of the amendment is to give cities some control over the traffic moving through their streets. and I think the residents and the city councils of larger cities in our states, from Wheeling to Charleston to Bluefield, Parkersburg, and Charleston, would be anxious to have the control that this amendment would provide. So I urge the adoption. Thank you.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All those in favor of adoption will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. Noes appear to have it. Noes do have it. The amendment rejected. Are there further amendments? No. If not, the bill will be advanced to third reading. Further bills.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 233, excluding from protection oral communications uttered in Child Care Center under Wiretapping and Electronic Surveillance Act.
Are there amendments?
Delegate Schott moves to amend the bill. This is HFA Schott 3-25, number 1.
John from 27th, Delegate Schott asks unanimous consent to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Joan from the 27th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is the strike and insert amendment adopted by the Judiciary Committee. Under the existing law, there's under Section 62-1-D1-2 currently does not provide a definition for a child care center. It does provide a definition for oral communications that expressly excludes any electronic communication from its definition. However, that's the only exception to the definition. The original bill creates a definition of child care center and provides for additional exception to oral communications. The added exception excludes an oral communication uttered in any child care center where there are written notices posted informing persons that their oral communications are subject to being intercepted. The strike and insert amendment, which is before you today, seeks to clarify the definition of child care center while still encompassing the purpose of the bill. The definition of child care center in the strike and insert amendment requires that a facility must be licensed by the Department of Health and Human Resources in order to fall within that definition. The strike and insert amendment passed out of the Committee on the Judiciary without any additional amendments. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I urge adoption of the amendment.
Are there other members desiring to speak to the adoption of the amendment? If not, the question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All those in favor of adoption will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced to third reading. Further bills.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 247, authorizing prosecuting attorney designate and deliver grand jury records for investigative purposes.
Are there amendments?
Committee on Judiciary moves to amend the bill. This is H. Jude AM 3-21, number 1.
John from 27th, Delegate Schott asks unanimous consent to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read. Is there objection? Chair hears none. John from 27th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Senate Bill 247 establishes procedures to be followed by prosecuting attorneys and law enforcement who are investigating matters that are subject of a grand jury proceeding. Currently, when a subpoena is issued by a grand jury for records, the law is silent as to who can receive or retain those subpoenaed documents. Specifically, the law is silent as to whether the prosecutor must first receive the documents before law enforcement may review and investigate, or may law enforcement directly receive the records. The bill makes clear that the prosecuting attorney must receive the records first. The bill additionally makes clear that the prosecuting attorney acts as a gatekeeper of the records and that no investigator or law enforcement may obtain the records unless authorized by the prosecutor. The committee amendment before us now makes both technical and substantive corrections. With respect to the technical amendments, the committee amendment corrected internal cross-references that had an incorrect subsection. With respect to the substantive aspects of the committee amendment, the bill removes language that could be interpreted as allowing law enforcement to receive material prior to being presented to the grand jury. The bill also removed language that allowed for transfer of records to successor custodians without first going through the prosecuting attorney. While we'll speak in more detail as to the entirety of the bill tomorrow, the effect of this committee amendment is to make clear the intent to limit access to grand jury records and empower the prosecuting attorney as the ultimate custodian and gatekeeper of the subpoenaed material. Mr. Speaker, I urge adoption of the amendment.
Are there other members desiring to speak to the adoption of the amendment? Not the question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. All those in favor of adoption will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments? Not to bill be advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 248, clarifying composition and chairmanship of Commission on Special Investigations.
Are there amendments?
Committee on Judiciary moves to amend the bill. This is H. Jude AM number 1.
The gentleman from the 27th, Delegate Schott, asks unanimous consent to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Gentleman from the 27th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Senate Bill 248 updates and revises the article relating to the Commission on Special Investigations. As part of the updates, the bill states there must be a vote by a quorum of the Commission in approving certain items or motions. The committee amendment simply changes the word quorum to majority in 2 places in the bill. Hence, the effect of the amendment is that when voting on matters or motions, a majority of the members present must vote to approve. Mr. Speaker, I urge adoption.
Are there members desiring to speak to the adoption of the amendment? If not, the question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All those in favor of adoption will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 338 relating to medical professional liability.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 347 relating to modernization of Physician Assistant Practice Act.
Are there amendments?
Committee on Health and Human Resources moves to amend the bill. This is H and HRAM number 1.
The gentleman from 27th, Delegate Ellington, asks unanimous consent to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Gentleman from 27th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The amendment removes the requirement that the physician assistant's normal place of employment be the same as the collaborating physician, which will permit the physician assistant more latitude in where he or she works. It also removes the mandatory insurance reimbursement requirement, but adds a physician assistant to the list of medical providers who shall be paid by an insurance company for providing medical services under their scope of practice. And finally, it clarifies that a physician assistant is exempt from maintaining a national certification. Mr. Speaker, I do urge adoption.
Are there other members desiring to speak to the adoption of the amendment? Not the question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments? Not the bill will be advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 437, discontinuing West Virginia Greyhound Breeding Development Fund.
Are there amendments?
Delegate Eldridge moves to amend the bill. This is HFA Eldridge 3-28.
Okay. Gentleman from the 22nd, Delegate Eldridge, asks unanimous consent to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Gentleman from the 22nd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was hoping I wouldn't have to do this today. I was hoping to get postponed one more day. As my chairman pointed out the other day, this is probably not the time and place and wrong bill, and I'm going to agree with him before he says it again. It's probably a bad amendment to a bad bill. For me to stand here and not to stand here and not get up and fight for the small jobs that I have in my district, the few jobs that I do have in my district, especially Lincoln and Logan County. These people get up every morning excited about going to work or raising dogs. They're not too excited right now because they don't know what's going on. This is the second, third year we've done this. They don't know whether to stay in the state, whether to move out of the state. Rule says you got to have a dog in the state for a year before you can race them in West Virginia. So really they're between a rock and a hard place. This amendment is a simple amendment. I just want to share the love with the horses. They used to kill an industry for a budget. We can do other things for their budget. There's some discrepancy of how many jobs this is. Well, if it's one job in my district, I'm going to stand up and fight for it. And if I could offer 50 more bad amendments to this thing, I would. Everybody gets up here and stands for their district and what they stand for. If we can't band together as a group of people to fight for your district, then we're here for the wrong reasons. I don't want to close hospitals down in different districts. I don't want to keep cutting jobs. But these people are excited about getting up in the morning and going to work. And they love living in West Virginia. If we continue doing this, we're not going to have anybody in West Virginia to pay the bills. And I would reserve the right to close, and I am going to ask for the yeas and nays.
Other members desiring to speak to the adoption of the amendment. Gentleman from 35th, Delegate Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Gosh, this whole year is a very difficult one. Many different areas of our state are unfortunately taking it on the chin. I mean, we've seen what the last 3 years have done to our energy sector and how many have been negatively affected. But there are industries that through time, the interest or the involvement, it changes. This happens to be one of those. 20 years ago, the racing industry for our greyhounds and really thoroughbreds was thriving much greater than it is now. But over these last 10 years especially, there's been a tremendous decline. You know, I think I stated the other day that just in Wheeling alone, how the participation at the track as far as people attending has gone from 900,000 20 years ago down to less than 20 last year, or maybe it was 2013 according to a study. I mean, it's very difficult times, and it's the prioritization. This bill would eliminate the subsidies that are currently in play for Greyhound purses. $13.6 million. It is part of our budget this year. The gentleman's amendment would basically take money right out of our general revenue that's set up to fund current programs in the budget that last Saturday that was presented to the House Finance Committee, which included money going to our arts. So if you, prioritization, money going to our higher education, K through 12, prioritization, DHHR, and the many programs that are there, again, prioritization. It's very difficult standing up and trying to defend and get behind areas of this budget. Small ones to the large ones, but they all come together. And at the end of the day, it's about a balanced budget that keeps us going forward so that we can provide those programs, those priority programs across the state. I mean, I feel for these people. You don't know how much. But it's also one here that 80% of these monies that we're talking about go out of state right now. 80%. So not only the handle that is distributed live at the gate, which between thoroughbreds and the greyhounds, 2016, that's down to $24 million. And then when you add this $13 million, and this is just the greyhounds, I think there's a like amount that is for the thoroughbred industry. We're subsidizing something in place of maybe higher priorities. And Mr. Speaker, I would urge rejection of the gentleman's amendment.
Gentleman from third, Dr. Fluharty.
Will the gentleman yield? Gentleman from 35th.
Gentleman yields.
Sir, you stated that participation at the Wheeling Downs in particular has declined. Are you aware of what the average handle is, say, in the month of March at Wheeling Downs?
I am not.
You're not. You're the chairman of the Finance Committee.
Is that a question?
Are you the chairman of the Finance Committee?
I am.
And you're not aware of the numbers that come out most recently from the Wheeling Downs, which you just said were at 80% decline?
I'm not.
Okay, and the handle that takes place at Wheeling Downs, a percentage of that comes back to the state's share, correct?
That's correct.
What's that percentage?
I do not know.
All right, thank you for yielding. Speak to the amendment, Mr.
Gentleman may proceed.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have with me, this stuff is public record, easy printout. It's imagine what you can do when you spend 5 minutes on the internet. Charts for Friday afternoon, March 24th, 2017 at the Wheeling Downs. This is just a Friday afternoon at the Wheeling Downs. Total handle, I've highlighted, $220,000, $220,436.26. $220,000 on one Friday afternoon, of which 1% every day goes back to the state. Lies and deception, that's all we hear on this bill, and we just heard it from our finance chairman.
The gentleman is out of order. Further members desiring to speak to the adoption of the amendment.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from the 58th, Doug Coles.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I feel for those who are in the industry, and this is a big change. But this amendment, I think, goes a long way destroying the whole bill. I believe the truth is, despite what my friend would say, the truth is the general public just does no longer support the raising and training and running of dogs for bet and money. You know, maybe at the track it still does a pretty good bet on some day or some month, but from my perspective, the general public just does not support that concept anymore.
Gentleman may state his point.
The amendment doesn't have to do with polling numbers, of which he's not even giving us anyway. The amendment has to do with the share.
I believe the gentleman's discussing the background of what the amendment would do, which is.
Yes.
Gentleman may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And certainly I'm not talking of polling numbers. I'm talking about what I feel I hear from my district. My friend who offered the amendment did mention earlier that we should consider and do other things. Do other things instead of this. He did say that one of those other things would not be the 104-year-old hospital that costs us $5 million a year. That's not one of them, he mentioned. But we should consider to do other things, and that's why this amendment should pass. You know, I don't know what those other things could be. Eliminating the film tax credit, that would save us $5 million perhaps, but that's not on the list, I guess, or transferring money, or a beer tax, or tax reform. None of those things are, if those aren't the other things that we might consider, well, I think this is what we're left with. And undergirding all that is the fact that I believe the general public just no longer supports the raising and training and running of dogs for bet and money. If there's a transition process, perhaps that would be something, but you can't be against everything and tell me there are other options. So it would be my suggestion that today we don't allow this amendment that totally guts the bill, but instead stick to the idea that there is a higher and better use for the taxpayers' money than the greyhound racing industry anymore. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
John from 22nd to close debate on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would you yield for a question, Mr. Chairman? Finance.
Gentleman yields.
You alluded to that my amendment would basically take more money. Did I understand you correctly? It's not going to fund this, it's not going to fund that. And I think I just said it would take money away from the general revenue as part of the 2018 budget.
My amendment is going to take the same amount of money, correct?
No, the amendment would strike the current bill that would, in essence, transfer $13 million into general revenue.
Well, I agree with you. It's still going to be $13 million, but it's going to take part of it from the horses and part of it from the dogs. It's not going to take any more. Am I not correct on that?
Again, getting back to the current bill, that would allow those funds to go into excess lottery and roll into general revenue. Your amendment would take a tremendous, or more than half those dollars away. And then the other thing that it would also take away that's in this bill is funding for the Racing Commission. The Racing Commission that in this bill has $1.5 million going to it that not only affects the thoroughbreds or the greyhounds, but affects thoroughbreds.
This would affect the thoroughbreds. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But it's the same amount of money. I'm not asking for taking any more money or any less money. I'm just asking to take less money from the dogs. Correct?
I believe that's what you have here.
Mr. Speaker, could I have our clerk up here to read my amendment? Make sure I'm understanding it right.
You want the clerk to read the entire strike and insert amendment?
What? Or just give me the gist about it. I mean, we got testimony from the chairman saying it's going to take more money and take away from. To my understanding, my amendment doesn't really take any more or any less. It's just less from the dogs.
Well, the gentleman was recognized to explain his amendment. If the gentleman wants it read, it can be read, but I don't think the clerk can explain the amendment or portions of it.
What's my understanding, my amendment just takes half from the horses and half from the dogs. I'm not asking to take any more money from any, or put less money in. You're still going to get your money that you're asking for. Mr. Chairman, Finance, is that not correct?
Gentleman yield. Gentleman yields.
No. Your amendment kills the bill.
Well, I mean, if my amendment passes, maybe so. But you're saying my amendment is going to appropriate more money to certain projects. Same amount of money is my understanding.
Again, the amendment kills the bill so that there is not funding available for the general revenue. The amendment, should it go through, would result in just a little trickle of funds coming through.
Could you explain how it would kill the bill? I mean, you're still going to get the same amount of money. Is that not correct?
That's not correct.
That's not correct.
That's not correct.
Okay. Maybe I misunderstand my amendment then. I still would close, please.
John may proceed.
I'm still going to stand up here and say, yeah, it's probably a bad amendment. It's a bad bill. I'm still going to stand here and fight for my people and for my area. It's my understanding, still going to get the same amount of money. Still going to close that gap for that budget. But it may save a few jobs in my area. That's all I'm asking. I don't have horse breeders in my area. It's going to be at your doorstep next. Something in your area is going to be cut. If we don't start standing together and stopping this, we can fix this problem and save some jobs if we can just do this right here, the 2 cents. A delegate from Cabell County introduced a couple years ago. I do ask for the ayes and nays, Mr. Speaker.
Roll call has been demanded. Is the demand sustained? Demand is sustained. Those in favor of the gentleman's amendment will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has each member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine. The gentleman from the 37th delegate Pushkin, your vote is not registered. Okay. See if everybody else has. If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, 39 ayes, 57 nays, 4 members absent not voting. Less than the majority of members present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the amendment rejected. Are there further amendments?
No.
If not, the bill be advanced to third reading. Further bills.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 442, relating generally to crimes against persons.
Are there amendments?
No.
If not, the bill be advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 455, relating generally to commitment of persons to custody of Commissioner of Corrections.
Are there amendments?
Committee on Judiciary moves to amend the bill. This is H. Jude AM 3-24.
Gentleman from the 27th, Delegate Schott, asks unanimous consent to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Gentleman from the 27th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Senate Bill 455 updates and revises the commitment order for defendants sentenced to prison. The order is signed by a judge and directs that the defendant be committed to the Department of Corrections to serve his or her sentence. As part of the order, there is a provision that states that the defendant may be placed in the regional jail while waiting an available space in a Department of Corrections prison facility. The order states that the Department of Corrections is responsible for the cost of incarceration at the regional jail pending transfer. The committee amendment before you simply cleans up the language relating to this incarceration clause. Specifically, the amendment clarifies and expressly states that the Department of Corrections is responsible for the cost of incarceration in the regional jail pending transfer of the person to a DOC facility. Mr. Speaker, I urge adoption of the amendment.
Are there other members desiring to speak to the adoption of the amendment? If not, the question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments?
No.
Not the bill be advanced to third reading. Further bills.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 473, permitting collection and sale of naturally shed deer antlers.
Are there amendments?
No.
Not the bill be advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 497, relating to liability for health care providers who provide services at school athletic events.
Are there amendments? Not the bill be advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 531, relating to renewal date for apiary certificates of registration.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill be advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 634, relating generally to certain agreements between DHHR and states' medical schools.
Are there amendments? Not the bill be advanced to third reading.
Senate Bill 684, relating generally to West Virginia State Police.
Are there amendments? Not the bill be advanced to third reading. Bills on first reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 5, disqualifying CDL for DUI conviction in certain cases.
Bill be advanced.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 151, authorizing Department of Administration to promulgate legislative rules.
Bill be advanced.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 206, expanding definition of kidnapping to include taking or gaining custody of, confining, or concealing person by force.
Bill be advanced.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 214, adopting Uniform Electronic Legal Material Act.
Bill be advanced.
Senate Bill 222, relating to disqualification for unemployment benefits.
Bill be advanced.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 225, allowing magistrates to conduct proceeding for temporary emergency protective order dealing with temporary custody by family court.
Bill be advanced.
Senate Bill 256, relating to prohibiting, aiding, and abetting of sexual abuse by school personnel.
Bill be advanced.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 261, relating to increasing salary or wages of judgment debtor.
Bill be advanced.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 445, amending definition of abused child.
Bill be advanced.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 456, relating to standards for termination of parental rights in child abuse and neglect cases.
Bill be advanced. Leaves of absence. Miscellaneous business. Gentleman for the 58th.
You're watching the West Virginia Legislature on the West Virginia Channel. This is the floor of the House of Delegates. The Senate has met and adjourned. We'll show you what the Senate did while the House was in session. Also, later after the floor sessions, we'll be bringing you a public hearing held this morning in the House chamber on Senate Bill 239, limiting use of wages by employers and labor organizations for political activities. We will present that public hearing once the floor sessions are over.
Gentleman for the 58th.
Mr. Speaker, subject to announcements, I move the House stand in recess until 5 p.m.
Further announcements. John from 64th, delegate householder.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Committee on Finance will meet this afternoon at 3 p.m. to consider legislation. The agenda is posted, and the Committee on Finance will meet tomorrow, March 31st at 9 a.m. The agenda will be posted.
John from 28, delegate O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Republican members will caucus in the House chamber at 1 o'clock.
John from the 27th, delegate Schott.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The members of the Committee on the Judiciary will reconvene again today at 4:30 to complete hopefully complete the posted agenda. We'll meet again tomorrow at 9:30 following the public hearing, and to all members of the House at 8:30 tomorrow morning, that's Friday, March 31st, the Committee on the Judiciary will have a public hearing on Senate Bill 212, which is the title of which is Relating Generally to Procedures for Driver's License Suspension and Revocations.
John from 51st, delegate Statler.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Education will meet Friday morning at 9:30 a.m. in the Education Committee room. The agenda will be posted. The Republican members will caucus at 9 a.m. in the Speaker's office.
Lady from 31st, delegate Arbonne.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Government Organization will meet tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. in the Government Organization Committee room. The agenda will be posted.
Lady from 49th, delegate Summers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think I missed remarks by members.
We're no longer having remarks by members under our rules that is discontinued on before prior to.
Can I have unanimous consent to address the House?
49th asks unanimous consent to address the House. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Lady from 49.
Mr. Speaker, I'm asking that members of this House please stand for a moment of silence in memory of Clyde Kelly, the brother of John Kelly, who passed away last night.
Members and guests will please stand. Members may be seated. John from the 27th, delegate Ellington.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. The Committee on Health and Human Resources will meet at 2:30 today rather than 2 o'clock. And also the Republican members of the House Health Committee will caucus with the chairman in his office at 2 o'clock.
John from 22nd, delegate Eldridge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On a way of announcement, Mr. Speaker, I would like to give, I guess, the people here an update on the trooper that was shot in Lincoln County. This is a Lincoln County guy. Pretty fond of him. He's a great guy. Does nothing but protect the people. He's doing well. You know, if he didn't have his vest on, shot him here and ricocheted up and hit him in the shoulder. Plus, he took a shot in the wrist as well. But even then, he didn't try to leave. he stayed there and made sure that he drove around that place there. There was a lady involved. He was afraid she was still there. He stayed right there until somebody else came before he went to the hospital. So what a hero, and I want everybody to let him know he's doing well. Thank you.
John from the 16th, Diagon Hornbuckle.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House education members from the Democratic Caucus, we will meet tomorrow morning, 8:45 in room 151.
Lady for the 50th, Diagon Longstreth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Democrat members of the Health Committee will caucus at 2 o'clock in room 151.
John from the 24th, Diagon Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just want to remind everyone, hot dogs are in the back of the chamber. Thank you.
John from 28th, Diagon Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a heads up to the Veterans Committee, we may have a meeting scheduled tomorrow or at the very latest Monday. I'm not exactly sure, but I just wanted to give you a heads up. We have one bill we may have to consider. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Are there further announcements? Not requested for the House is a motion by the gentleman from the 58th House stand in recess until 5 p.m. today. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Declare the House in recess until 5 p.m. today.
And the House will go in at 5 o'clock today just to take committee reports because committees are meeting this afternoon. Remember that announced House meetings, the audio is available on the legislature's website. We'll go now to the state Senate. After the Senate concludes, we'll provide coverage of a public hearing held this morning in the House chamber on Senate Bill 239, limiting use of wages by employers and labor organizations for political activities. And we'll show you what the Senate did while the House was in session.
Of the floor will please vacate the chambers. With those on the floor and our guests in the gallery, please rise as we are led in prayer this morning by Pastor Matt Friend of the Bible Center Church in Charleston, West Virginia, and then please remain standing as we are led in the pledge this morning by the senator from Harrison. Pastor Friend.
Let us pray. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. We thank you for the glory you've woven into our state. From Wheeling to Bluefield, from Huntington to Martinsburg, we see your beauty in our mountains, in our rivers, in our trees, and in our skies. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. God, we want your will to be done in this session. Each of us wants justice to prevail for the hurting while still honoring an honest day's pay for an honest day's work. Help us to give generously to our neighbors while still being able to leave something behind for our kids. Finding that balance will take your grace, and so we ask for wisdom today. Give us this day our daily bread. You know our state is hurting. Please provide for our needs. Send us jobs, or better yet, Father, I pray you would inspire our good citizens to create jobs. And in the next few years, help us to move from retreat to prosperity, from pessimism to optimism, from hopelessness to hopefulness. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Today in this chamber, I pray you would give us the humility of the baby in the manger, the mercy of the innocent Savior on the cross, and the confidence of the risen conquering King. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. I pray this in the name of Jesus Christ, my Savior. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for that prayer. The senator from Harrison.
Will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag. Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Reading of the journal.
West Virginia Legislature, Senate Journal,
Charleston, West Virginia, Wednesday, March 29, 2017. The Senate met at 9 a.m. Senator Carmichael, Mr. President, was in the chair. Prayer was offered by Pastor Eric Porterfield, 5th Avenue Baptist Church, Huntington, West Virginia. The Senate was then led in recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance.
The senator from Marshall requests unanimous consent that further reading of the journal be dispensed with and that it be approved as having been read. Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Introduction of guests. On behalf of the Senate, it is my pleasure to welcome our honorary pages for the day. Please stand and be recognized as your name is called. As the guest of the senator from Mercer, we have Mallory Roberts, Myra Taylor, Daniel Gibson, Caitlin Fulp, and Lauren Lafferty. As guest of the senior senator from the 6th, Emily Keaton and Emma Cooper. As guest of the senator from Harrison, Tommy Davis. As guest of the senator from Wayne, Tate Atkins, Abby Parks, Evan Gissel, Jalen Nicely, Max Speet, and Ramsey Ash. As guest of the senator from Cabell, Ethan Lovejoy and Luke Lovejoy. And as guest of the senator from Monroe, Dakota Bennett. Would they all please rise, and some are in the rear of the chamber, and the Senate give them a warm welcome. Further introductions, the senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's my pleasure and yours to introduce our doc for the day, Dr. Wes Lafferty of Mullins, West Virginia. If he would stand and the Senate make him welcome.
Further introductions, the senator from Logan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today we have some very special folks with us in the gallery. We have the beauty queens from Logan and Mingo area. So on behalf of my senior senator from Boone County and my fellow senators from the 6th, I would like to introduce the Logan Freedom Festival Queens. Queen Haley Mullins, could you please stand? She's accompanied by her parents, Tommy and Tanya Mullins. Our teen queen, Hannah White, accompanied by her mother, Julie White. Our princess, Hillary Gore, who is accompanied by her mother, Amber Vyers. Also, I would like to introduce our Logan Woods and Water Festival queens, Queen Lauren Ramey. Our teen queen, Carly Miller, accompanied by her mother, Dina Miller. And our princess, Mallory Reed, accompanied by her father, Tim Reed. Also accompanying the queens of the festivals are our City of Logan's mayor, Mayor Serafino Noletti, and our City of Logan clerk, Amber Miller Vyers. If everyone could please give them a warm Senate welcome.
The senior senator from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of myself and the senator from Mercer, seated in the North Gallery, joining our pages from Mercer Christian Academy in Princeton is Josette Cooper. Will you please stand and Senate make her welcome?
The senator from Wayne County.
On behalf of the senator from Cabell, I am pleased to have in the gallery. First, I'd like to take this privilege of the one that I'm introducing first is a person that I've worked with on a number of projects at Kellogg Elementary and other places. But you also may see her on the morning at WSAZ. It's Melanie Schaefer Atkins. She's the mother of Tate Atkins. That's one of the pages, if you could stand. Also, we have with us Mike Giselle, the father of Evan Giselle, that is one of the pages. And we have Randy Ash, the father of Ramsey Ash, and we have Stacy Ellis, the mother of Jalen Nicely, also pages, if they could stand.
The senator from Wyoming County.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the senior senator from the 9th, we have parents and chaperones of the Wyoming East High School golf team in the North Gallery. If you would join us, please give them a warm welcome.
The senator from Brooke County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yesterday when we were debating the helmet bill, I kept hearing a voice in the back of my head from 30 years ago that refused to allow me to ride my bike outside without a helmet. And so my mother, who is sitting in the North Gallery, came down to tell all of you to wear your helmets when you ride. My mother, Rosanna Filberto, she could stand in the Senate. Please make her feel welcome.
The senator from Mercer County.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the senior senator from the 6th, I'm very proud that we once again have two pages from Mercer County, and their parents are in the rear gallery, Candy Fulp and Martin Lafferty, sorry, if the Senate would make them welcome.
Further introductions? Further introductions. Communications from the House.
Yes, sir. We have some messages from the House. The House clerk has sent over the following bills. Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2129 relating to the powers and authority of state and local law enforcement to enforce underage drinking laws of private clubs.
Message be received and referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
Engrossed committee substitute House Bill 2195 relating to requiring comprehensive drug awareness and prevention program in all public schools.
Message be received and referred to the Committee on Education.
Engrossed committee substitute House Bill 2363 requiring that a state employee with a commercial driver's license have a current medical evaluation certification.
Message be received and referred to the Committee on Government Organization.
Engrossed committee substitute House Bill 2428 establishing additional substance abuse treatment facilities.
Message be received and referred to the Committee on Health and Human Resources and then to the Committee on Finance.
Engrossed committee substitute House Bill 2483 requiring the Division of Juvenile Services to transfer to a correctional facility or regional jail any juvenile in its custody that has been transferred to adult jurisdiction of the circuit court and who reaches his or her 18th birthday.
Message be received and referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
Engrossed committee substitute House Bill 2851 updating fee structure provisions for broker-dealers.
Message will be received and referred to the Committee on Finance.
Engrossed committee substitute House Bill 3062. The State Settlement and Recovered Funds Accountability Act.
Message will be received and referred to the Committee on Finance.
Engrossed committee substitute House Bill 3080 requiring instruction in the Declaration of Independence and the United States Constitution.
Message will be received and referred to the Committee on Education.
Engrossed committee substitute House Bill 3102 relating to selling Hopemont Hospital.
Message will be received and referred to the Committee on Health and Human Resources and then to the Committee on Finance.
House Concurrent Resolution 109 extending the Committee of Conference relating to consideration of committee substitute for House Bill 2099.
Message be received. The Senator from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. President. Request unanimous consent the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, committee reference be dispensed with, and the resolution be put upon its adoption.
Senator from Ohio requests unanimous consent that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, committee reference be dispensed with, and a resolution be placed upon its adoption. Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. The clerk will read the resolution. Question before the Senate is adoption of the resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the resolution adopted. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
House Concurrent Resolution 110, extending the Committee of Conference relating to consideration of committee substitute for House Bill 2028.
Message be received. Senator from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, committee reference be dispensed with, and the resolution be put upon its adoption.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Question before the Senate is adoption of the resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the resolution adopted. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
That is all, Mr. President.
Communications from the executive.
From the Honorable Jim Justice, Governor of the State of West Virginia, dated March 29, 2017. Senate Executive Message Number 6, Regular Session 2017. To the Honorable Members of the West Virginia Senate. Ladies and gentlemen, I respectfully submit the following nominations for your advice and consent. Notice of these appointments, there were 83 of them. Notice of these appointments was previously provided to the appropriate legislative staff at the time the appointments were made. Sincerely, Jim Justice, Governor.
Message will be received and referred to the Committee on Confirmations. The Senator from Pleasants.
Mr. President, I move the consideration of the nominations immediately hereinbefore reported be made a special order of business on April 8th at 11 a.m.
The Senator from Pleasants moved that consideration of the nominations immediately herein reported be made a special order of business on April 8th at 11 a.m. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the motion adopted.
There's another executive message from Jim Justice, Governor of West Virginia, dated March 28, 2017, to the Honorable Mitch Carmichael, President of the West Virginia Senate. Reference Enrolled Senate Bill 330. Dear President Carmichael, pursuant to the provisions of Section 14, Article 7 of the Constitution of West Virginia, I hereby disapprove and return Enrolled Senate Bill 330 due to pending litigation calling into question the constitutionality of this bill's underlying statute and for public policy reasons. I disapprove this bill because it is underlying legislation, SB 1, 2016, regular legislative session, is currently being challenged as unconstitutional in Kanawha County Circuit Court, and the injunctive relief issued by that court has been appealed to the West Virginia Supreme Court of Appeals. The Attorney General has requested that the Circuit Court issue a final decision by May 1st, 2017. A decision by the Supreme Court regarding the current appeal is expected after April 21st, 2017. Any amendment to this statute before such time as a court has finally determined its constitutionality is imprudent and contrary to public policy. For the foregoing reasons, I disapprove and return the bill. Sincerely, Jim Justice, Governor.
The message will be received. The Senator from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that in accordance with Section 14, Article 7 of the Constitution of the State of West Virginia, the Senate proceed to reconsider Senate Bill 330, heretofore disapproved and returned by His Excellency the Governor with his objections.
The Senator from Ohio moves that in accordance with Section 14, Article 7 of the Constitution of the State of West Virginia, the Senate proceed to reconsider Senate Bill 330, heretofore disapproved and returned by His Excellency the Governor with his objections. Is there discussion? The Senator from Marion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think what the Governor has pointed out is very clear. This has been discussed. I'm deeply concerned that we are overstepping our powers as a legislature in light of the separation of powers. It's very well documented and very well outlined that the Attorney General obviously has requested a final decision by May 1st. We're going to be out of here before then. The Supreme Court is expected to have an appeal or a decision by April 21st of this year, and I concur with the governor. This is imprudent and contrary to public policy. I hope we will stand with the governor and uphold his decision to continue to veto this bill.
Further discussion? Further discussion? The senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of the motion to reconsider our action, override the veto of the governor. As we discussed when we had this bill on the floor, the amendments affected by the legislation that we passed, which the governor's now vetoed, were designed to address only a minor portion of the bill that we passed last year, a portion which the trial court, the Circuit Court of Kanawha County, specifically found to be vague and ambiguous. And in an effort to clarify that part of the legislation, we should, and as we have, acted to amend the statute to clarify it so that there is no ambiguity or vagueness. This does not interfere in any way with the adjudication of the question of whether or not there's constitutional authority for the legislation or whether the legislation is somehow inconsistent with the United States Constitution or the West Virginia Constitution, which clearly, in my opinion, it is not. I'll say that again. But our action in the bill that we passed, Senate Bill 330, was just to take out the part of the statute that the court found to be vague or ambiguous. If we override the governor's veto and the bill has, as I think it did, a normal effective date, it's not even going to become effective till after the May 1st hearing anyway. So I urge support of the majority leader's motion.
Further discussion? The senator from Upshur.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the previous question.
Previous question has been moved. All those in favor of moving the previous question will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the motion adopted. The question now is on adoption of the motion by the senator from Ohio. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the motion adopted. The question now is on passage of the bill, notwithstanding the objections of the governor. Is there discussion? Not. The question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, there being 21 yeas, 12 nays, 1 absent and not voting, more than a majority of those elected to the Senate having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed, notwithstanding the objections of the governor. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House. Further messages from the executive? Reports from standing committees.
Your Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure has had under consideration the following Senate concurrent resolutions naming bridges and roads. Senate concurrent resolutions number 13, 24, 31, 32, 41, 43, 44, 45, and House concurrent resolution number 83, and reports the same back with the recommendation that they each be adopted. Respectfully submitted, Greg Bozo, Chair.
Reports will be received. The senator from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our question is sent that these resolutions be taken up for immediate consideration, considered simultaneously, and put upon their adoption.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Question before the Senate is adoption of the resolutions. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the resolutions adopted. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Your Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure has had under consideration Senate Concurrent Resolution 23, Johnny Odell Linville Memorial Bridge, and reports back a committee substitute for the same as follows. In Senate Concurrent Resolution 26, U.S. Marine Corps Staff Sergeant Beecher J. Rhodes Memorial Bridge, and reports back a committee substitute for the same as follows. With the recommendation that the two committee substitutes be adopted, respectfully submitted, Greg Bozo, Chair.
Reports will be received. The senator from Ohio.
President, I request unanimous consent the resolutions be taken up for immediate consideration, considered simultaneously, and put upon their adoption.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Question now is adoption of the resolutions. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the resolutions adopted. The clerk will
These
communicate the action of the
resolutions
Senate to
name
the
bridges and roads.
The Committee on
things after
Transportation and
people from the
Infrastructure
Roads
has
and
had under
Transportation Committee.
consideration Senate Concurrent Resolution 46 requesting study on consumer complaints regarding safety of aftermarket crash parts, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it be adopted, but with the further recommendation that it first be referred to the Committee on Rules. Respectfully submitted, Gregory Boso, Chair.
Report will be received. The senator from Nicholas.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate Concurrent Resolution 46 be referred to the Committee on Rules.
Senator from Nicholas moves that Senate Concurrent Resolution 46 be referred to the Committee on Rules. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the motion adopted. Further standing committee reports.
Your Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure has had under consideration engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2180, authorizing the issuance of special In God We Trust motor vehicle registration plates, and has amended same and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass as amended. Respectfully submitted, Gregory Boso, Chair.
Report will be received.
That's all I have.
Reports from select committees.
There are none.
Introduction of bills.
There are none.
Resolutions.
Senate Resolution 62 by Senators Plama, Wolfel, Prezioso, Stallings, Palumbo, Unger, and Beach, designating March 30th, 2017 as Marshall University Day.
The senator from Cabell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I stand
Senator from Cabell requests unanimous consent that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, committee reference be dispensed with, and the resolution be placed upon its adoption. Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will read the resolution.
Just read the title. Designating March 30th, 2017 as Marshall University Day.
Is there discussion? Is there discussion? The senator from Cabell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll try to get it right this time. Let me have that water, guy. Give me a moment while the green people file in here, if you don't mind. Thank you, Mr. President. I stand here today in a way humbled because of the great education that I received at Marshall. I looked around the body and I can see at least 10 or more of us that received all or part of our education at Marshall. Our governor holds 2 degrees from Marshall, and many of our staff were educated at Marshall. So what is Marshall anyway? What has it become? Marshall has a vibrant and diverse group of students. It has a world-class faculty, 100 degree options, 10 campuses around the state, and in my view, Marshall is the economic engine that drives Southern West Virginia, the I-64 corridor, and quite frankly, it's just grown into a research university, over $30 million worth of research expended every year. And we are so proud to have as our guest today representatives from this great university, and I encourage passage of the resolution.
Further discussion. The senator from Wayne County.
Thank you, Mr. President. As a graduate of Marshall, I also want to say that Dr. Gilbert, the president, could not be here today. He is receiving a distinguished fellow of his alma mater, College of Engineering. That's quite an honor for Mississippi State University. He was torn between whether he would go ahead and receive that honor or come here today for this, but obviously this is such an honor that he could not make it, and I know that he is sorry that he's not able to be here. Marshall University adds at least $400 million, more than $400 million to our economy, 3,200 jobs with the numerous campuses that the senator from Cabell talked about. But when you're talking about research and forensics, with the Robert C. Byrd Center for Flexible Manufacturing and the entrepreneurship that has locations throughout the whole state, they're bringing new vibrance to this state. I do want to take a point of personal privilege. My wife works at as the Dean of Admissions for the Marshall Med School, and she has a number of students, and I want to name 4 of them that are here today that are my wife works directly with, and I'll have to say proudly that 3 of them come from Wayne County and 1 comes from Mercer County. But if I could name them, they're from Mercer County, Ashton Sexton, from Wayne County, Courtney Wellman, and Casey and Morgan Stickler, also from Wayne County. 1 went to Bluefield High School, 1 went to Tulsa High School in Wayne County, and 2 of them went to Spring Valley High School. Marshall University adds a lot to this economy in the state of West Virginia. Obviously, what we do here in the next few days is going to be very important that they keep their mission. So I urge the adoption of this resolution.
Further discussion. The senator from Boone County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of the resolution. Graduated in 1982 from the School of Medicine, the second graduating class. The first class started in, I think, January of the year, so they consolidated that year. I was the first, I guess, graduate in a full year, and so that's why members of that first class can always say, before us there were none, and after us there will be no more. It's a tremendous training program, pouring physicians out into West Virginia and around the world. And I'm a very proud alumnus of the Marshall University School of Medicine.
Further discussion. The senior senator from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I, too, am a proud graduate, 1996 from Marshall, and there's no doubt that the reason I'm standing here today is because of my education I received there. I'm very embarrassed that I don't have my Marshall tie on, but I can guarantee you later today I will have it on. And just want to thank everyone there that made my education possible, and it was a pleasure.
Further discussion. Further discussion. If not, the question before the Senate is adoption of the resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the resolution adopted. The senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our question is sent. The remarks by the senator from Cabell, the senior senator from the 5th, the senator from Boone, and the senior senator from the 6th be printed in the President's Journal.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. Senator from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move the Senate stand in brief recess for the purpose of presenting the resolution.
Senator from Ohio moves that the Senate stand in brief recess for the purpose of presenting this resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the Senate in brief recess to present this resolution. Senate will please come to order. Senate will please come to order. Clerk has another resolution.
Senate Resolution 63 by Senators Klein, Stallings, Facemeyer, Palumbo, Beach, and Plymel, congratulating Wyoming East High School golf team for winning the 2016 Class AA State Championship.
The Senator from Wyoming.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator from Wyoming requests unanimous consent that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, committee reference be dispensed with, and that the resolution be placed upon its adoption. Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will read the resolution.
Congratulating Wyoming East High School golf team for winning 2016's Class AA State Championship.
The Senator from Wyoming.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Wyoming East High School Warrior golf team is here today, and I'm so proud to introduce them to you. They have won the 2016 Class AA State Championship golf of our state this year, and I just can't tell you how proud we are of them. The golf team made Wyoming County and school history this season by winning this award. This team was the first to win or to earn a state golf championship for both Wyoming County and Wyoming East High School. The teams consist of Logan Cook, Brett Laxton, Patrick Smith, Michael Groh, Noah Quisenberry, Ethan Bradford, Matt Caldwell, along with head coach Robert Doc Warner and volunteer coach Kevin Hedinger. Noah is not with us today. I urge the adoption of this resolution.
Thank you. Further discussion? The Senator from Raleigh County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too rise in support of this resolution. I grew up in Wyoming County, and sports was a way of life. We don't have a Walmart, we don't have a Longhorn Steakhouse, we don't have an Applebee's, but what we do have is great sports teams and great coaches. And so I want to congratulate Coach Warner and these kids for putting in the hard work, the time, and the dedication, and Coach Hedinger, I see him back there, to get to the top and win a state championship. So I urge passes this resolution.
Further discussion? Further discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is adoption of the resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the resolution adopted. The Senator from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our question unanimous consent. The remarks by the Senator from Wyoming and Raleigh be printed in the appendix of the Journal.
Senator from Ohio requests unanimous consent that the remarks by the Senator from Wyoming and the Senator from Raleigh be printed in the appendix of the Journal. Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. The Senator from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate stand in brief recess for the purpose of presenting the resolution.
Senator from Ohio moves the Senate stand in brief recess for the purpose of presenting this resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the Senate in brief recess to present this resolution. Senate will please come to order. Senate will please come to order. Clerk has a further resolution.
Senate Resolution 64 by Senators Jeffries, Gaunt, Stallings, Facemeyer, Palumbo, Unger Beach, and Plumell, congratulating Herbert High School boys basketball team for outstanding athletic achievement.
The senior senator or the junior senator from the 8th.
Okay.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, committee references be dispensed with, and the resolution be put up on its adoption.
Junior senator from the 8th requests unanimous consent that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, that the committee reference be dispensed with, and that the resolution be placed upon its adoption. Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will read the resolution.
Congratulating Herbert Hoover High School boys basketball team for outstanding athletic achievement.
The junior senator from the 8th.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent to speak to the resolution.
Senator may proceed.
Mr. President, a couple of days after the flood hit last June, we were in Clinton and delivering supplies. Like many West Virginians, we were trying to do anything we could to help. While I was there, we saw a small boy on the side of the road covered head to toe in mud. He was standing ankle deep in the mud watching his dad run a backhoe to clean up his property. He looked so sad, tired, and scared, and he wasn't much older than my grandson, Eli. I knew a few things looking at this little boy that day. I knew that a heart could break in an instant. I knew that whatever it took, that I would be there, and our company would be there until we were no longer needed. Mr. President, we are still there. That was a hard day last June. But the people of the Elk River, they are good, they are kind, and they are strong. They pitched in, and slowly, through the hot, long summer, with numerous volunteers helping families, they have started getting their homes put back together. Healing broken hearts takes longer. Losing the high school, Herbert Hoover High School, has been a great trial for the community. But they have put together a schedule to accommodate all the children. It hasn't been easy to share classrooms and space for activities and sports, but they've all pitched in, and not only have they managed, they have thrived. I want to tell you more about our guests today, the Herbert Hoover High School basketball team, their cheerleaders, and their coaches. These are young people who are wonderful examples of what student athletes are supposed to be. Their basketball team, their GPA average is 3.92, wonderful achievements. The cheerleaders, 3.84. Despite having no true home gym and a difficult practice schedule, they make no excuses. They worked hard and they have gotten the results. Hoover defeated Clay County, Roane County, and Lewis County to win their first sectional title since 1968. They defeated Robert C. Byrd in double overtime to win the school's regional championship. And Mr. President, this is the first time in the history of Herbert Hoover High School to make it to the West Virginia State Championship tournaments. First time in its history. Their school principal is Mike Kelly. Their athletic director is Jerry Legg. Cheerleaders coach, Jamie Hayes. The basketball team is led by head coach Josh Daniels, with assistant coaches Terry Jarrett and Josh Stricker. The team's postseason success is truly a symbol of a community as a whole in the wake of the flood. They came from behind in both sectionals and regionals, and they won. This team demonstrated a never-give-up attitude, which is shared by every member of the Elk River community. Mr. President, on behalf of myself, my senior senator from the 8th, my senior senator from the 17th, and my junior senator from the 17th, ladies and gentlemen, please join me to welcome these fine young men and women of Herbert Hoover High School. Mr. President, I urge adoption of this resolution.
Further discussion. The senior senator from the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. President. What a great pleasure it is for me also to stand in honor of Elk River and Herbert Hoover High School, the epitome of resilience, courage, character, and under the great leadership of Principal Kelly, this school is not only surviving, but they are thriving, as the junior senator said. I'm happy to recommend passage of this resolution.
Further discussion. Not question before the Senate is adoption of the resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the resolution adopted. The senator from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the eloquent remarks by the junior senator from the 8th and the senior senator from the 8th be printed in the appendix of the journal.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. The senator from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate stand in brief recess for the purpose of presenting the resolution.
Senator from Ohio moves that the Senate stand in brief recess for the purpose of presenting this resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the Senate in brief recess to present this resolution.
You're watching the West Virginia Legislature on the West Virginia Channel. This is a Senate floor session from earlier today. After today's Senate floor session, we're going to show you a public hearing from this morning in the House chamber on Senate Bill 239, limiting use of wages by employers and labor organizations for political activities. That public hearing coming up after the Senate floor session here on the West Virginia Channel.
Senate will please come to order. Senate will please come to order. Further resolutions?
There are none.
Motions? Petitions?
There are none.
Unfinished business?
The Senate Concurrent Resolution 49, erecting signs in Kanawha County declaring home of Ralph Maddox.
Resolution.
1980 and HPA Hall of Fame.
Resolution will be received and referred to Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure. All right. Bills on third reading.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2459 relating to regulation of health care and the Certificate of Need process.
Question before the Senate.
Third reading.
Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? The junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill affects the Certificate of Need in West Virginia. I'm going to briefly go through these again, just so all members know. It does change exemptions from CON to services such as telehealth, a CT scan, and a transfer of a CON for purchase by a financially distressed hospital. It changes the exemptions for hospitals creating an ambulatory healthcare facility, the development of a skilled nursing facility in a county in West Virginia which does not have one. It removes language that makes the Healthcare Authority autonomous under the Department of Health and Human Resources and simply makes it an entity under the department. It eliminates the 3 full-time paid board members and replaces them with 5 board members whose qualifications for the position are spelled out in the bill. It creates the position of Executive Director to oversee the daily operation of the HCA. It moves the functions of Certificate of Need under the 5 board members and makes it a function of the Department of Health and Human Resources. It eliminates the need for financial disclosure by the Healthcare Association by various healthcare entities, including nursing homes and hospitals, and eliminates the assessment charged on all of our hospitals. The West Virginia Health Information Network, currently under the purview of the HCA, would remain there, but this bill would allow them to pursue privatization of that network. I'll be happy to take questions. Otherwise, I urge passage of the bill.
Is there discussion? Is there discussion? The senator from Boone County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the chairman yield?
Does the senator yield? Senator does yield.
Chairman, if a hospital such as CAMC, for example, wanted to buy an outlying hospital to keep them functioning, would they have to go through a CON process?
If they're financially distressed, no. And then in the bill, there's specific details of what qualifies as a financially distressed hospital.
But in general, if an out-of-state entity wanted to go into the Morgantown area, if that Morgantown hospital was not distressed, then there would be a requirement for a CON process.
There would be. It would be under CON review.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Further discussion, the senator from Marion County.
Mr. President, would the healthcare chairman continue to yield?
Senator continue to yield.
So in this bill, we've totally eliminated the assessments.
That's correct.
Okay. Well, it seems to me that what about now? There's I think a special revenue account that goes in for the healthcare authority.
That's correct.
It was about $2 million.
Previously, I believe it was around $6 to $8 million.
So has most of that been swept?
That has not been.
It's still there?
That's correct.
Do you think the current amount?
I'm sorry?
Do you think the current amount in that balance, along with the special fees, are enough to sustain? They will be transferred?
Well, the CON process should, it's self-funded. There's a fee schedule for the application of a CON, and once a CON's been approved, there really shouldn't be any fees to continue for that. So I guess it really kind of comes down to how many CONs are actually applied for, and then there is a fee schedule within the bill that remains that it should self-fund that program.
Right now, it's a special revenue account that self-funds it, but if we transfer it to DHHR, essentially that's taxpayer money that we'll be using to do the assessment? Because there will no longer be fees?
No, the CON application, there's a fee required if you are applying for a CON, so that money would go towards helping, if I'm understanding the gentleman's question correctly, that money would go to help pay for the process of reviewing the CON.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion? Further discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. Clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, there being 27 yeas, 6 nays, 1 absent and not voting, more than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk has a title amendment.
Senator Takubo moved to amend the bill by striking out the title and substituting therefore a new title to read as follows. Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill number 24.
Question before the Senate is adoption of the title amendment. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the title amendment adopted. The senator from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective.
Senator from Ohio moves the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none. On this question, there being 27 yeas, 6 nays, 1 absent and not voting, more than 2/3 of those elected having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill effective from passage. Clerk will please communicate the action of the Senate to the House. Bills on second reading.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2679 relating to the possession of firearms in parks and park facilities.
Are there amendments to the bill?
Yes, sir. The Committee on the Judiciary moved to amend the bill by
The senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent to be able to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The senator may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Judiciary Committee amendment to this bill is a strike and insert amendment for the whole bill. It preserves all the changes in the law that are made by the original House bill as it came to the Judiciary Committee, but it does conform the bill because those same sections of the code are open. It conforms the bill to a couple other legislative instruments, Senate Bill 345 and House Bill 3101, which have been passed by one or the other houses of the legislature. Senate Bill 345 is the bill that allows hunting all 7 days of the week on private property, and House Bill 3101 prohibits someone from fishing within 200 feet of personnel who are stocking fish, which we refer to as stalking stockers. So I urge adoption of the amendment.
Further discussion? Further discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is adoption of the Judiciary Committee amendment as offered by the senator from Morgan. All those in favor will say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendment adopted. Further amendments to the bill? Not to be, the bill will be engrossed and bill be advanced.
Okay. Ready for the next one? You ready or you? Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2721, removing the cost limitation on projects completed by the Division of Highways.
Are there amendments to the bill?
Second reading.
Are there amendments to the bill?
Yes, there are. Senator Hall moved to amend the bill on page 4, section 5, line 70.
The senator from Nicholas.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent to explain the amendments in lieu of having them read.
He did. Senator Hall's amendment.
And that all amendments be considered as one.
Okay.
Senator from Nicholas requests unanimous consent to explain the amendments in lieu of having them read and that all amendments be considered as one. Is there objection? Chair hears none. The senator may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. These are just a couple of amendments to take that which was done over in the House. What they did was take our bill that we sent to them and added the ceilings that were in the original amount and actually lowered the ceilings for the public-private partnership that's necessary for us to accomplish a number of transportation projects throughout the state. And what they did is they took the $20 million down to $10 million. They also added back into it a sunset date of 2023. Mr. President, I urge adoption of the amendment.
Further discussion? The senior senator from the 4th.
The reason he explained the amendment is that bill came from transportation in that form, and he would explain it. I would just briefly say that as he just stated, I'd reiterate that if this amendment is not adopted, it restricts in the out years, it puts a cloud over what projects may actually be delayed or not actually done. One of them is a significant one in our district, Mr. President, and that's if you've ever driven to Huntington and you cross that bridge at Nitro and you've had traffic coming on and you have to be almost a NASCAR driver to navigate that. And the proposal is to build another bridge, which will be very expensive, be probably a part of this program, could be hindered by these limits. And I'm sure there are other projects around the state that would experience the same possible stress. Also, as we get to the next bill, I think it's a very similar thing, which there are some changes made in the House, and we're basically, I think, taking these bills back to the governor's original version and how they left the Senate. Obviously, we send them back to the House. They may disagree with our amendments. You'd end up in conference, but that's what we're doing.
Further discussion? Not. The question before the Senate is adoption of the amendment as offered by the senior senator from the 4th. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendment adopted. Further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
Not. The bill will be engrossed and advanced.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2722, eliminating the financial limitations on utilizing the design-build program for highway construction.
Are there amendments to the bill?
Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
Yes, sir, there are. Senator Hall moved to amend the bill.
The senator from Nicholas.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, I request unanimous consent to explain the amendments in lieu of having them read.
Senator from Nicholas requests unanimous consent to explain the amendment.
And that all be considered as one.
And that all amendments be considered as one. Is there objection? Chair hears none. The senator may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the design-build bill, which allows the Department of Transportation to take these transportation projects that, as part of our overall infrastructure development project that we funded and acted on yesterday, and allow it to continue. The House bill came back changing a $50 million annual limit to $150 million. And on design-build projects, they changed it so that it's $100 million per project and $300 million in the aggregate. We have a number of projects throughout the state that with these particular caps, will limit our ability to accomplish these projects. The Department of Highways needs the flexibility to be able to accomplish, for instance, the Wheeling Bridge and Tunnel renovation project, which is a $130 million capital improvement project, correction, it's not a capital improvement project. It is actually a renovation and elimination of some hazards that are there on that particular corridor. It's vital for us to be able to invest. But the design-build tool, more than anything else, is a flexible tool that the Department of Highways can utilize to respond very quickly when times of disaster occur. I urge adoption of the amendment that rolls back to what we agreed to when we sent it, the original bill, which was number 417, to the House.
Further discussion, the senator from Wayne.
The senator from Nicholas yield.
Does the senator yield?
So you're saying that it goes back to the way that we changed it, or what we had and the way the original bill was?
It does.
In
Senate Bill 417 left here and went across to the House. They made the modifications. They put the limits back in that limit our abilities to be able to do those and respond to this.
This amendment takes the limits off.
It does. It takes the limits away. Just a moment.
That is the counsel to the Transportation and
I stand
Infrastructure
corrected.
Committee
We sent it to
advising the
floor
chairman.
from Transportation and Infrastructure and Finance here, and what this does is takes a similar bill,
Puts our bill
that came
into
across,
theirs.
and it takes our bill and plows it into theirs.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Further discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is adoption of the amendment as offered by the senior senator from the 4th. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendment adopted. Further amendments to the bill? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Engrossed House Bill 3106, relating to increasing the number of limited video lottery terminals. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not, the bill be advanced. Bills on first reading.
Engrossed Committee substitute for House Bill 2329, prohibiting the production, manufacture, or possession of fentanyl. Committee amendment and title amendment pending.
Bill be advanced.
First reading of the bill, sir.
Bill be advanced.
Engrossed House Bill 2878, increasing amount of authorized federal grant anticipation notes for which Division of Highways may apply. First reading of the bill.
Bill be advanced. Introduction of guest. Introduction of guest. The senator from Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of my senior senator from Braxton, it's my pleasure to introduce the parents of one of our pages today, Tommy Davis. Will Wetzel Davis please stand, and will you please welcome him? There he is, back in the back.
Further introductions? Remarks by members of the Senate. The senator from Logan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm just going to ask for your leadership. As you all know, that we fought pretty hard here, and yesterday we had a historical vote that took place, and apparently now over in the House side there's some issues as to why this bill is not being read. So I would appreciate it if you could use your leadership that I know you possess to go over there and please get some things in order. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further remarks? Further remarks? Miscellaneous business. Oh, I'm sorry. The senator from Harrison County. Further remarks? The senator from Brooke County.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of myself and the senator from Ohio, I know that today is Marshall Day, but I also didn't want to forget that on this day, 180 years ago, so 1837, the Virginia legislature granted a charter to establish a private academy just north of Wheeling in Ohio County. That academy had a first class of 65 students, and it met in the home of the Reverend Nathan Shotwell. The school is now West Liberty University and is a very integral part of the Northern Panhandle. Now they offer master's degrees and several bachelor degrees. So just want to give the opportunity that it's not just Marshall Day, we'll call it West Liberty Day as well. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Further remarks? The senator from Ohio County.
Request unanimous consent. Remarks by the senator from Brooke be printed in the Appendix to the Journal.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Further remarks? Miscellaneous business. The senator from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. President. Subject to announcements, I move the Senate stand adjourned until tomorrow at 11 a.m.
Are there announcements? The senior senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. There'll be no finance meeting at 3 p.m. today, but there will be one at 9:30 in the morning.
Senator from Monroe.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Education Committee will meet this afternoon at 2 p.m. The agenda is posted. We'll be in the finance room.
The senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on the Judiciary will meet at 3 o'clock p.m. today and at 9:30 a.m. tomorrow, both meetings in 208 West Wing.
The senator from Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Energy, Industry, and Mining will not meet today at 1 o'clock. Will not.
The senator from Preston.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Finance Subcommittee on House Bill 2805, Senator from Braxton and Senator from Nicholas, will meet today at 3 p.m., 4:51 m.
The junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Health will meet today at 1 p.m. in Senate Finance Room.
The senior senator from the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Pensions will meet tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. and 4:51 m.
The senator from Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. President. The AFL-CIO will have its labor caucus for the senators on March 30th, immediately following the morning session in 330 West.
The senator from Pleasants County.
Mr. President, your confirmation committee will meet tomorrow, Friday, at 1 p.m. in 208W.
Further announcements, the senior senator from the 15th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Government and Organization will meet today at 2 p.m. and the agenda has been posted.
All right. Further announcements. Not the question before the Senate is, shall the Senate stand adjourned until tomorrow morning at 11 a.m.? All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the Senate adjourned until tomorrow at 11 a.m.
And that is the Senate floor session from earlier today. Also, earlier today in the House chamber, there was a public hearing on Senate Bill 239, all relating to limitations on the use of wages and agency shop fees by employers and labor organizations for political activities. This bill, Senate Bill 239, passed the Senate on March 7th on a vote of 21 to 12. And here's this morning's public hearing before the House Committee on the Judiciary.
We have 12 folks that have signed up to speak. We'll try to alternate these as best we can between those who signed up as pro and those who signed up as con, but as often happens in these hearings, there's more on one side than the other. I'll call two names out. I'll call the person who will be coming to the podium first, and I'll call the person who will be following that person second. And if you're the person second, if you would try to move closer to the front in one of these chairs over here, or even at the bench up front, so that you can move to the podium quickly after your name is called. We'll allow 3 minutes. At the time you get within 15 seconds of that deadline, the red light will go on. That'll give you an opportunity to wrap up your comments. Please adhere to that time schedule. That will give us a few minutes after the hearing is over for any of our members who want to ask individual presenters questions. So if you're able to stay around after you've made your presentation, please do so, so that if we have members of the committee or members of the House that want to ask you questions to follow up on your comments, they'll have an opportunity to do that. We do have a copy of the Judiciary Committee amendment. It's actually a rewrite of the bill that came over from the Senate. It's on the table up here, so if you hadn't had a chance to see it, it's up there for your use. All right, we're going to begin with Dale Lee first, and he will be followed by A.J. Rogers.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Dale Lee, the president of the West Virginia Education Association, and I'm here today to speak against Senate Bill 239. I appreciate those of you delegates who are here, and I know it's early this morning, but the billions that are out there should be excited to hear this. The question that remains to be answered as this bill is moved through the legislative process is, why is this bill needed? What is the purpose of this bill? No one has an answer. Senate Bill 239 appears to be a bill that is in search of a problem. Now, to my knowledge, there have been no complaints from businesses, employees, or employers regarding the current method for which dues, credit union accounts, charities, etc., are deducted from the employee's pay. As a matter of fact, many employees use their credit union and banking to do everything in pre-deduction form. The increased paperwork for employers and the additional burdensome paperwork for the employees serves no purpose. Employees, the State School Superintendents Association, and businesses all object to the unneeded paperwork, oversight, and bureaucracy that's being placed upon them by the legislature with this bill. The current system of deductions has worked well for many years, and there is no need to change the process. Senate Bill 239 is simply an intrusion of government into the pockets of employees, hindering an employee's ability to freely associate and to make choices about where their paychecks go. Employees join our organization freely. They already sign a document authorizing dues to be deducted from their pay. Nothing is deducted without the consent of the employee. They are adults, and they can read their pay stubs. The deductions are listed on every paycheck and are stopped immediately when the employee requests it. Our current system of dues deduction is a transparent system. The deductions are controlled by the employee. The system for dues deductions is not broken, and it doesn't need to be fixed with additional government bureaucracy and burdensome paperwork. Without any real rationale for change, it appears that Senate Bill 239 is a blatant political attack on the freedom to assemble and the attempts to silence groups with differing viewpoints. I ask you to consider Senate Bill 239 and to determine why the legislature is wanting to get involved in how and where employees are spending their pay. And why are you looking to place additional needless burdensome paperwork and government requirements onto our businesses? Folks, the system is working. Everyone will tell you it's working, and yet we want to change it. I urge you to vote against Senate Bill 239, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. A.J. Rogers, followed by Jason Huffman.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Delegates, ladies and gentlemen. My name's A.J. Rogers. I am the Executive Director of the West Virginia Association of School Administrators. Just to briefly tell you, most of you know about the organization and most of you think it's just a superintendent's organization, but it is not. We represent all county boards, administrators, West Virginia Department of Education administrators, RESA administrators, retired school administrators. So just to give you an idea of what I'm speaking for. And we are speaking against this bill this morning because we feel if it's not broke, why fix it? And as Mr. Lee just said, you know, it's a solution looking for a problem. We've been spending the last several years trying to eliminate bureaucracy and paperwork, and we've even been asked by a lot of delegates and senators what policies and bills and legislations out there that we can eliminate to make things easier for your folks on the central office level. Just having folks apply one time for these organizations through, and as Mr. Lee again said, it's on their check, but to do that every year for all these different organizations is just going to be an undue burden on central office finance offices And we just want to make sure that we speak against that, and I would hope that you would vote against this bill. Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Jason Huffman, followed by John Ballingy.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Jason Huffman, and I'm the State Director of Americans for Prosperity West Virginia. And on behalf of over 13,000 of our activists across the state, I strongly urge you to support Senate Bill 239 and the free speech protections it provides West Virginians. Currently, some employers are able to deduct wages from a worker's paycheck for political purposes without first seeking that worker's consent. This practice is absolutely unacceptable because it undermines West Virginians' free speech, and it takes money away from their paychecks and their families that they could use otherwise as they see fit. Senate Bill 239, the Paycheck Protection Bill, would ensure that workers' wages are protected by giving them a choice as to whether or not they want their employer to deduct wages from their paycheck for political activities. This process is a simple but very important means by which we can ensure workers' rights are protected and upheld in the workplace. Hardworking mountaineers should not have their wages used to influence politicians and influence elections without having a say-so. Workers deserve to have their wages and their free speech rights protected, and protected through a paycheck protection law. This legislation represents a key vote issue for Americans for Prosperity, and as such, we will hold lawmakers accountable who stand for working families and protect their paychecks, and hold those accountable who refuse to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Huffman. John Ballingy, followed by James Lee.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Good morning. My name is John Ballingy. I'm the Executive Director of the United Way of Central West Virginia. I come to you on behalf of 15 local United Ways throughout the state. So I've heard two speakers already talk about political deductions and dues deductions. But all of a sudden, I read all the way back on page 12 of this corrected version of this bill that deductions for charitable purposes will be prohibited. That's a big problem, folks. All of a sudden, my payroll deduction to pay a United Way pledge to support in this community 26 different agencies will be eliminated. For our United Way, the United Way of Central West Virginia, that would mean that payroll deductions totaling in excess of $650,000 each year would go away. That means that that money would not be distributed to the 26 agencies. That means that direct donor designations would not be paid to those nonprofits. That means that those nonprofits would potentially go out of business. And additionally, that means that quite possibly the United Way of Central West Virginia would cease to exist. And then all of a sudden I read further that medical insurance could not be deducted. Medical insurance premiums? Come on, folks, that's the way I pay my medical insurance. I am strongly opposed to this bill for that particular reason. We need to leave the opportunity for people to pay through payroll deduction a pledge to support their community. If we don't do that, we will have thousands and thousands of people that do not have any place to go for support. Some of those people actually are paying a pledge to support flood victims. So go to Clendenin and Elkview or go to Greenbrier County and talk to the folks that are receiving support through that mechanism and tell them, oh, we're sorry, that pledge is going to go away because we eliminated the opportunity for people to pay a pledge through payroll deduction. That does not make any sense. So I'm opposed to this bill, and I hope you will vote against it. Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Ballingy, perhaps it's not clear in the bill, but all that would require for a payroll deduction is a piece of paper that the employee signs authorizing the deduction.
If that's the case, that's perfectly okay. We have those every day.
Well, that's been my practice in my organization. We always sign off on our United Way pledge, and it's been moved from one section to the other, but the bill permits that. It just requires the employee to sign off on it annually.
And my apologies. I noticed that the word charities had just been...
The way it works is certain deductions are authorized without the need for the form. That would be an employer-sponsored plan, If your employer sponsors your health insurance, you don't even need to sign a form, or at least a special form. We've eliminated the requirement that the form needs to be notarized, so all you would need to file for a United Way deduction is a piece of paper with your name on it approved by the employer.
Since we are streaming live, that apparently is on the record now, so I'm gonna believe that.
That's in the bill. Yes,
Thank you very much.
Sure. James Lee, followed by Christine Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to speak here today. I am James Lee. I am the president of the West Virginia Troopers Association. I stand here today to say that the West Virginia Troopers Association is opposed to Senate Bill 239. The reason being is because not only will the first year that we have to go back and have every trooper across the state and all of our counties sign another form so that their dues will be deducted, we will lose members. And we will lose members every year after that by trying to have them re-sign every year. Basically, it will kill my organization if this bill passes. I don't need a lot of time. I don't need 3 minutes. I can just tell you it will kill my organization if this bill passes, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Christine Campbell, followed by Brian Hoylman.
Good morning. I'm Christine Campbell, president of the American Federation of Teachers in West Virginia. We represent teachers, service personnel, and state employees. I'm here to speak in opposition of Senate Bill 239. At a time when the state is in financial crisis and hardworking people can barely make ends meet, the majority party has decided to spend taxpayer dollars to dictate how we can spend our money. This session has been described as a session of flexibility. Senate Bill 239 does just the opposite. The requirements set forth in this bill do nothing to fill the $450 million hole in our budget. They do nothing to attract and retain quality employees or businesses, nothing to improve the salaries, benefits, and nothing to give us the academic freedom to teach. The original bill intended to stifle voices of hardworking people in regards to political activity. The current language encompasses all payroll deductions, including savings plans, supplemental insurance, and payroll deductions, organization and club dues, even charities. They claim flexibility while mandating that if your employer chooses to allow deductions and you choose to authorize deductions from your paycheck, you and your employer have to authorize every deduction every year. Teachers often work additional 20 hours a week just to complete the mandated paperwork they have today. This bill adds enormous amount of paperwork that's already mandated. It's another responsibility on the employer and the employee who want to streamline contributions to organizations, benefits, retirement plans, and charities. Instead of building up West Virginia, these types of actions appear to tear it down with more governmental overreach, all in the name of flexibility. I urge rejection of this action. Thank you so much. Have a lovely day.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Brian Hoylman, followed by Joseph Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Brian Hoylman. I am president of the Associated Builders and Contractors of West Virginia. We represent commercial and industrial construction companies and their workforces here in the Mountain State. I'm here to speak in favor of this very important piece of legislation. This proposal is not a complicated one, and despite what you hear about this interfering or violating certain individuals' rights or targeting certain groups, this law actually empowers our workforce. It gives them clarity, and it gives them the power to make decisions regarding where their hard-earned dollars go with regards to certain deductions in their paychecks. And it's really that simple. By requiring annual authorization and limiting the use of dues for things such as political activities without a worker's direct authorization, our workforce in the state will have the ability to know exactly where and how their funds are being spent and more importantly, allow them to opt out on an annual basis of certain activities they are unhappy with or feel violate or do not represent their personal values. Without the passage of this law, we'll continue to allow employers and third-party organizations alike to deduct from the wages of employees and the money that they earned and spend those funds on causes that may affect their lives in significant ways with little concern for their personal preferences. For that reason, we strongly urge this body to put the power back into the hands of our state's workers and allow them to authorize where their money goes and how it is spent under the workers' continued authorization. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Hoylman. Joseph Cohen, followed by Elaine Harris.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, honorable delegates, fellow West Virginians. My name is Joseph Cohen. I am the Executive Director of the American Civil Liberties Union of West Virginia. I stand here today in opposition to Senate Bill 239 because it would place restrictions on the political activities of one group, wage earners, and not others. Other people today have talked about non-political activities and their concerns. I'll tell you, our concerns are the restrictions on workers' political activities. SB 239 does not place any requirement that the shareholders in corporations provide express written permission before the corporation uses any of their investment for political activities. It does not require that partners in profit-making enterprises sign a form saying that they authorize that partnership to use the partnership's funds for political activities. It does not require universities to get the express written permission of students prior to expending tuition money on political activities. SB 239 does not force the Chamber of Commerce or the NRA or the Ku Klux Klan or the American Civil Liberties Union to get the express written permission of members who get money automatically deducted from their bank accounts every month before we spend it on political activities. No, SB 239 only applies to wage earners, to workers. We think that this bill's application to that one category, working people, raises some First Amendment concerns. Under the United States Constitution, laws that regulate political speech based on the identity of the speaker are presumptively unconstitutional. Should the legislature really be placing restrictions on the political activities of workers that are not placed on the bosses? We don't think so. And if we're being honest, we all know that this regulation is aimed at labor unions. Labor unions are unquestionably the most well-resourced, recognized voice of the entire American working class. By creating new administrative hoops for workers to fund union political activities, SB 239 inhibits the dissemination of working class views and solutions to the major problems of our day. Ultimately, these restrictions, in the ACLU's opinion, shamefully inhibit working people from becoming full participants in the body politic. And for that reason, we oppose SB 239. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. Elaine Harris, followed by Jim Bowen.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee and the general public. My name is Elaine Harris, and I am the chairperson of the United Food Operation. As a founding member of the nonprofit, as we refer to as the UFO, it was a collaboration of business and labor coming together more than 36 years ago to feed each year more than 30,000 hungry people in the greater Kanawha Valley and also in Putnam County. I can tell you that in this case, every little bit counts. A very large number of the people who help keep our organization going, people who donate on a regular basis, are everyday working West Virginians who are not by any means wealthy. They want to help, but find the best way to do that is to allocate a small amount of money out of each paycheck, just a little bit here and there. Writing one big check each year isn't realistic for most people who, like so many West Virginians, live paycheck to paycheck. They're already setting aside savings for homes, expenses, and their children's college. This is a way to set aside just a few dollars to help feed the hungry. Employees make arrangements with our participating employers, longstanding employers in the Valley who already had payroll deductions set up before arranging payments to the United Food Operation. Each employee is free to set up the deduction based on what he or she can afford. Then each employee decides if and when to change that deduction. This legislation changes that. It complicates a situation that works very well and throws government interference into the relationship the United Food Operation has had with participating employers and employees. We are an all-volunteer nonprofit, and all funds we raise go directly to purchase food supplied to 12 community food pantries in Kanawha and Putnam counties out of a donated warehouse space donated by Dow Corporation. United Food Operation and other charities like us in West Virginia strike a delicate balance to find the most convenient, least demanding way for employees and their employers to provide donations to help the needy. It is unclear how this legislation would benefit any West Virginians, but it's clear to me that this legislation stands to greatly damage the efforts of nonprofits like us to help the less fortunate in our midst. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Jim Bowen, followed by Eli Baumwell.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the opportunity to speak here this morning, and to those committee members that showed up, we appreciate you being here. I'm just a poor old country boy, and I've represented people for 50 years. And I have never, ever had one person come to me and ask to be able to not have deductions made from their paycheck. This is totally wrong. It's an invasion. If you'd heard all the previous speakers, we've had charities speak, credit unions, companies. It is not appropriate to do this. And people, this bill started out in respect to political. Well, there is an opportunity for people to do so. If someone who is in a bargaining unit wishes to not have some of their money spent on political activity, they have the right to sign a card, and that will be returned to them, that share of the money. So there's where the signing belongs, not signing every year for contributions to our many charities, to the credit union. If you bought a car through the credit union, the easy way to do business, to require a person to sign each year. People come in, some days I've represented hundreds of thousands of people in this state and across this country. I've been doing this for 50 years. I have never had one person say that to me. That's the reality of it. And you see, if you work towards making things convenient, people appreciate that. This is making circumstances very inconvenient. Sign a card, 30 years later, you retire, you sign one card in 30 years. Under this system, you'd have signed 30 cards each year for 30 years for the same purpose. And I heard someone mention earlier the fact that the United Way, and they only have to sign it once a year. Well, once a year is too many times, and it should not be approved by this Senate Bill 239, should not be approved by this committee. I appreciate the fact that they have made an effort to do something to be hindering working men and women in our state. That needs to stop. It needs to be reality. It needs to provide an opportunity for our people to contribute to the charities, pay their bills through that system, and not have to sign it every year. I ask all of you to vote no on 239, and I appreciate the opportunity to say so. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen. Eli Baumwell, followed by Gary Zuckett.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, delegates. My name is Eli Baumwell, and I'm the Policy Director for the ACLU of West Virginia. I'm here to speak in opposition to Senate Bill 239. 96 years ago, a socialite and an organizer named Roger Baldwin traveled from New York City to Logan, West Virginia in the aftermath of the Battle of Blair Mountain. He came to speak in support of minors' First Amendment rights to the First Amendment right of association, the right to unionize. Prior to this, Baldwin and his organization had primarily been involved in defending conscientious objectors who had refused to fight in the First World War. This was his first foray, and his fledgling organization's first foray into a new policy area. That organization, by the way, was the American Civil Liberties Union. In the century that followed, the ACLU has been a strong supporter of unions and their right to organize, collectively bargain, and yes, their right to political activities. How sad and ironic it is that in this state, the state that's lost so much life and shed blood for those rights, the state that really helped birth the labor movement, and a state where unions have played such a pivotal role in shaping the lives of so many, we'd find ourselves once again fighting these battles. And make no mistake, that is what Senate Bill 239 is. It makes unions jump through significant hoops to make political expenditures. These are hoops that other associations, that other organizations don't have to jump through. It's a direct assault on the First Amendment freedoms of association and speech, as the ACLU has fought side by side with labor for almost 100 years. And as we've done so many times in the past, we stand in solidarity with labor to oppose this law. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baumwell. Gary Zuckett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee and all of the people out there in the virtual reality. My name's Gary Zuckett. I'm Executive Director of West Virginia Citizen Action Group, and we stand opposed to Senate Bill 239 for all of the reasons that have already been expressed. We see this as a freedom of speech issue. We see it as government meddling in the employee-employer association. We see a body here that keeps advocating less government, less paperwork, and yet this is more paperwork and more meddling. And, you know, and Jason, I think I'm not with you on this one. It's basically part of the Koch brothers' agenda to push down the unions, to disassemble the unions, and that's ironic here in West Virginia with such a rich labor history. And when we look back at the history of the labor union, it basically changed wage earners from being wage slaves into being middle-class workers that could afford to support a family. So this is yet just another attack, this paycheck deception bill, which if you want to adequately name it, that's what it should be called, is just another thing to push the workers down and to make the bosses more money. So, you know, why? Why do we keep going in this direction when middle-class wages have been flat for the last 20 or 30 years? Do we want to push middle-class wages down further? I thought we were for prosperity for everyone, and this bill goes in the opposite direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zuckett. That concludes the presentations for those who signed up. There does appear to be a good bit of misunderstanding about what the House version, the House Judiciary version of the bill does. So let me just take a couple of minutes and explain how the bill works. It deals with a section of the code that's been in place for decades that's a relationship section between an employer and an employee. It's not just wage earners. It pertains to anybody who receives compensation from an employer. And the case law has actually held that doctors are covered by this act, and it prevents unauthorized deductions from an employee's paycheck, whether that employee earns wages or salary or any compensation. It basically bans the employer from making any deductions other than authorized. And that's the key word. How are they authorized? There are certain deductions that do not require any special type of signed agreement. Those are the ones required by law. Those are required by a court order. For instance, if you're required by court order to pay child support, those deductions will come out regardless of whether you separately authorize them. It also requires no special authorization for a deduction for any type of employer-sponsored plan. Your health insurance, if your 401k or whatever, there's no special type of deduction or authorization required for that. Now, most employers have a form they have you sign, but this law does not require anything there. But everything else now to protect the employee from an unauthorized deduction requires some form of signature by the employee authorizing the employer to make that deduction. If you have health club dues or something else, there needs to be something in the file so that the employer can show that you've authorized that deduction. Similarly, the United Way, and that's my understanding of what the practice is anyway. If you're going to participate in a United Way campaign, you'll sign something authorizing your employer to make that deduction. Keep in mind that the employer is not required to make those type of deductions, but if the employer agrees to make that deduction, it's totally up to you to do that. But it does require you to make that choice on an annual basis so that you have the opportunity to change your mind. There is no prescribed form for that. The bill started out in the Senate requiring a Secretary of State's form. We've eliminated that. We've also simplified the process. It doesn't have to be notarized. In the past, certain types of authorizations had to be notarized. This bill eliminates that, so all you really need for the employer to protect itself is something in the file where you signed off on it and the employer has okayed it, and that's good for a year. So in some ways, this has simplified the process. In some ways, it's standardized the process. The employer does not have to check to see if the charity that you have designated is an authorized charity. You don't have to check their tax status. If you say, I want this to go to ABC charity, that's all that's necessary. In the past, the employer was under the duty to check and make sure that charity actually qualified. That's been eliminated. You don't have to do that. And here's something that I don't think everybody realized. There were certain entities that were already authorized without a special form, but everything else was requiring the form. And so contributions to PACs, political action committees, always required this form to be not only signed, but notarized. That's been the law for decades. I can't say everybody's followed that law, but that's been the law for decades. We've eliminated the need for any type of notary, so it's just a simple form. You have that choice every year. You're given that choice. You can authorize it or you can not authorize it. But if the employer is to deduct it from your paycheck, it's got to be authorized. All right. We have completed our presentations. Those of you who are our presenters, we thank you for your input. Please stay around for a few minutes in case members of the House have special questions they'd like to ask for you. Otherwise, we're adjourned.
A public hearing earlier this morning on Senate Bill 239 relating to limitations on the use of wages and agency shop fees by employers and labor organizations for political activities. It passed the Senate on March 7th on a vote of 21-12 and is now before the House Judiciary Committee. More legislative news and information at 6:30 weeknights on the Legislature Today from West Virginia Public Broadcasting on TV, on radio, and online. We'll be back tomorrow morning at 11 with more coverage of the West Virginia Legislature. I'm Beth Voorhees for the West Virginia Channel, a service of West Virginia Public Broadcasting.